Chapter 228 Above Divine Rank Physiques. Are you sure there are no side effects to eating monster cores, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked him a moment later, as she was still not convinced that one could consume monster cores like that. Look, I'll even eat another one to prove to you that nothing happens, Yuan said to her as he popped another monster core into his mouth and swallowed it. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 134,655,197 chi has been refined from the assassin leopard's monster core. Feng Yuxiang experienced another minor heart attack after seeing Yuan eat another monster core. Brother Yuan has been doing this way before he met you and nothing bad has happened to him yet, so we can assume that it's safe, Xiaohua said a moment later. After a moment of silence, Feng Yuxiang spoke in a dazed voice. Young master, if you don't mind, can you tell me what kind of physique you have that allows you to consume monster cores like that? I have never heard of such a heaven-defying physique even in the upper heavens. Yuan nodded and said, Heaven Refining Physique. Heaven Refining Physique? Feng Yuxiang raised her slender eyebrows in a manner as she has never heard of such a thing before. Then she closed her eyes to ponder. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. After many moments of silence, she suddenly snapped her eyes open and shouted in a voice of realization, That's right. I have heard of this physique before. Really? Both Yuan and Xiaohua looked at her with anticipation in their gazes. Feng Yuxiang nodded and said, If I remember correctly, I heard about the heaven refining physique once before over 50,000 years ago when I was still roaming the upper heavens. It's a legendary physique that has existed only once before, and the individual who had that physique was said to be an incredible cultivator who dominated the heavens. Unfortunately, that's all I know. I see. So someone else had this physique before. Yuan mumbled. Well, that's only natural, said Feng Yuxiang, and she continued, In this world there can be multiple people with the same physique. Of course, the rarer and stronger the physique, the fewer people will have them. However, there are some really special physiques in this world that can exist only in one person at a time as mandated by the heavens, as they are simply too powerful to exist in multiple people. In other words, unless that person dies, nobody else can be born with the physique. In your case, young master, the person who used to have the same physique was a legend from countless years ago in the ancient times, so we can assume that he's long passed away, as only real immortals at the peak of cultivation can exist for that long, or else he wouldn't be a mere legend. And she continued, Does your physique do anything else besides allow you to consume monster cores? Yuan shook his head and said, Not that I know of. Can physiques have multiple powers? Feng Yuxiang nodded and said, Of course. The more powerful the physique, the more likely it'll have a second, even a third effect. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel Pub. What about the rank? Do you know the rank of your physique, young master? Yuan nodded and said, Celestial. Celestial? What rank is that? Feng Yuxiang raised her eyebrows in a truly puzzled manner, as this is her first time hearing of such a rank. Above the divine rank is the ancient rank, and above ancient rank is mythic rank, so I can only assume that the celestial rank is above the mythic rank, which is quite hard to believe if I am being honest. Feng Yuxiang mumbled in a low voice. After all, you won't see anyone above the divine rank in the lower heavens, much less the celestial rank that is likely above the ancient and mythic rank. It just doesn't sound plausible unless the young master was born in the upper heavens. That's not possible, Yuan shook his head. Forget about the upper heavens, he wasn't even born in the lower heavens. The only logical reason for this is that players such as himself don't abide by the laws of this world, hence why they're able to cultivate much quicker and defy the laws in this world. After all, if one thinks about it, players are otherworlders who came from another world, Earth. It shouldn't be too far-fetched to think that they would have an advantage over the people of this world since they're players comparing themselves to NPCs. Anyway, I'm going to consume the rest of these monster cores. Hopefully they'll help me reach Spirit Master. Yuan proceeded to toss the rest of the monster cores into his mouth, and Feng Yuxiang could only watch this unfathomable scene with a dazed look on her face. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 1,841,243,648 chi has been refined from the Praying Howler's monster core. 40,594,785 chi has been refined from the Bladed Jackal's monster core. 69,347,481 chi has been refined from the Greater Storm Wolf's monster core. 5,652,214,875 chi has been refined from the Lonely Giant Screamer's monster core. Even the 8th level Spirit Warrior Monster Core was swallowed without any problems. Just how powerful of a heaven-defying physique is this heaven-refining physique? Feng Yuxiang mumbled in a low voice, feeling a chill in her spine after watching Yuan's shocking performance. I only managed to absorb a little over 9 billion qi from all of the monster cores. I still need 3 more billion qi experiences before I can break through to Spirit Master. Yuan thought to himself afterward. Where else can he obtain these 3 billion qi experiences? Cultivating normally would take too long, and the Treasury Hall already gave him all of their monster cores. Hopefully, the Dragon Peak will be able to help me obtain the last 3 billion qi and allow me to break through to Spirit Master. Yuan mumbled as he gazed outside the window. Sometime later, once they calmed down, Xiaohua and Feng Yuxiang returned inside Yuan's body. And since there was nothing else to do until the inner court disciple examination next week, Yuan decided to log off for the day to cultivate in the real world. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. Come. Chapter 229 Parents. After cultivating in the real world for a couple of hours, Yuan stopped his cultivation and waited for Yu Rou to enter his room. Suddenly he could hear footsteps approaching his room. However, these graceful and quiet steps did not belong to Yu Rou. A few moments later, the door opened and Meixiu's voice resounded, "Good evening, young master. I will be attending you tonight because the young lady has been summoned by the masters." "Our parents? Do you know why?" Yuan asked her. "I do not, young master." "I understand. Thank you." A few moments later, Meixiu began removing Yuan's clothes and wiping him down with a wet towel. "Young master, if you don't mind me asking, you participated in a musical competition right? I heard about it from the young lady." Meixiu suddenly asked him. "Yes, I did." "What kind of instrument did you play?" she then asked. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. An instrument called the zither, Yuan casually said. "Did you win?" "Knowing the young master, you most likely placed first again." "I did." "See, congratulations, young master," Meixiu said in a somewhat surprised voice. After wiping his body, Meixiu began feeding Yuan his 3 bowls of soup. Could the young master be player Yuan, who's currently dominating the game and causing a commotion around the world with his mysterious identity? Although it's hard to believe their stories line up, Meixiu thought to herself. While she doesn't particularly care about matters outside of the Yu family, the countless talks about player Yuan have also caught her interest recently. Meanwhile, in a separate household a couple of miles away from Yuan's home, Yu Rou stood before 2 individuals, a handsome middle-aged man and a beautiful middle-aged woman. "Yu Rou, do you know why we called you here today?" the middle-aged man asked her. "I do not, father." Yu Rou responded in a calm voice. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. Indeed, these 2 individuals were the siblings' parents, Yu Yong the father and Tang Li the mother. After a moment of silence, Yu Yong spoke. "Do you know of the game?" Yu Rou's eyes widened at Yu Yong's unexpected question, as she never expected things that were not related to music would come out of their parents' mouth. "I have. I even played it for a couple of days during my vacation," she responded after her initial surprise. Tang Li then said, "Well, the other families have been talking about it recently, or more specifically, they have been talking about an individual who goes by the name of Player Yuan. Do you know of this person?" "I do. He's all over the internet after all." Yu Rou nodded in a somewhat dazed manner, silently wondering to herself why their parents were suddenly interested in Player Yuan, who was their own son. Yu Yong then said, "The children from the other families have recently participated in this musical competition related to the zither within cultivation online, and they told their families that this Player Yuan was without a doubt a musical genius with strong beliefs that he belongs to a family with a music background." And he continued, "I have heard of this Player Yuan before but never really paid attention to him, but if he's really a musical genius, I would like to meet him. Visit Light Novel Pub. For a better experience." "Why do you want to meet him, father?" "He's just a gamer who's decent with the zither, right? Even if he's a genius with the zither, there's no guarantee that he could play the other instruments as well. Furthermore, nobody plays the zither anymore." Yu Rou asked him. "It doesn't matter how many instruments he can play. Our company is always looking for talented people, and if this Player Yuan is as talented as they say, I want him to play for my company," Yu Yong said. Yu Rou shook her head and said, "I'm afraid that's impossible for now, father. Everybody has been looking for Player Yuan's real identity since the game started weeks ago, but nobody has been able to learn anything to date." "I know, I have been researching about him as well. However, I don't believe that he'll be able to hide his identity forever." Sooner or later, his identity will be revealed, and when that happens I will be the first one to greet him. Yu Yong said with a serious look on his face. Anyways, the reason I called you here today is to let you know that we will begin doing our tours and cultivation online instead of the real world, as that seems to be the trend nowadays. What? How does that work? Yu Rou stared at them with a gawking look on her face. Simple. We will start doing concerts in the game to spread our company's reputation within the game. The other families have already been doing this and to great success. Therefore we shall be doing the same as well. Why you don't mean? Yu Rou swallowed nervously after hearing this, as she could feel an ominous feeling looming in the atmosphere. I've heard from others that even people who cannot see or move in the real world can operate like they're perfectly healthy inside the game. If that's the case, then we can have you Tian play the game and start playing instruments again within the game. He has been useless for far too long, and it's about time he steps onto the stage again, albeit a virtual one. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Yu Rou silently gritted her teeth when she heard this, yet she didn't know what she could say at this moment. What if Brother Tian doesn't want to do it? Yu Rou asked a moment later. Tang Li then spoke in a cold voice. He doesn't have a choice in this. If he doesn't want to do it, then we will simply disown him and kick him out of the house, as we have no use for someone who does nothing but eat up our money and resources. It's not cheap maintaining someone in his condition even for us after all. Chapter 230 Yu Tian's decision? That's unreasonable, mother. Where will Brother Tian go if you kick him out? He cannot do anything by himself either. You cannot do this to him. Yu Rou immediately said. How dare you raise your voice at me, Yu Rou? Tang Li shouted back, and then she continued, we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in these last 10 years on that boy's medical bill hoping that he can be healed. However, it's very clear to us that his condition is permanent. If that's the case, why should we continue to waste our money on someone like him? There are things in life you must give up, even if that thing is family. But Brother Tian has brought fame and reputation to our family and company. How can you throw him away like trash after everything he's done for the family? Had even sacrificed his childhood so that our family could prosper. Yu Rou did not care about getting scolded and continued to defend Yu Tian, as she cannot imagine a life without him. It is true that his talents have brought our family and company to the peak of the musical world, that we won't deny. However, we've paid him back and more with the millions we've spent on him for the last 10 years. If he doesn't want to continue contributing to the family, then there's no reason for him to remain in this family. We've thought long and hard about this, and this is our decision. If you don't want that, then it'd be in your best interest to convince Yu Tian to comply with our request and play for the family again. Yu Yong said to her with a stern expression on his face. I understand. Yu Rou said after a moment of silence. Sometime later, Yu Rou left her parents' living quarters and returned to her own place. On her way home, she pondered how she should relay this news to Yu Tian and convince him to play for the family again. Once she had returned, Yu Rou went straight to Yuan's room. However, she didn't immediately enter his room and stood outside in front of the doors for many minutes. What's wrong, Yu Rou? Yuan's voice resounded from inside the room. Yu Rou took a deep breath before entering the room and she said in a solemn voice, I spoke with father and mother today. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Come, I know. Meixiu told me. Yuan said. What did you talk about this time? Did your grades lower again? Yuan spoke in a joking voice. However, Yu Rou didn't smile, nor did she respond to his question. What's the matter, Yu Rou? Yuan asked her, feeling something amiss from the quiet atmosphere. Well, you might not like what I am about to tell you, but this is something I must tell you, Yu Rou said, and she began telling him about what had occurred at her meeting with their parents as well as the conversation. Because the other families have been bringing their music into, mother and father decided to do the same, and they want you to start playing the instruments again. Yu Rou said to him, leaving out the part about disowning him if he refuses for now. Yuan immediately became speechless after listening to Yu Rou's words, and after a long moment of silence he spoke. So, they want me to repeat what I did when I was young in cultivation online? Yes, they want you to start playing the game but purely focusing on music. Updated from Light Novel Pub. After another moment of silence, Yuan said in a sighing voice, if I hadn't experienced the beautiful world that is cultivation online, I would have probably agreed. However, I have many things to do inside the game so I won't have time to do what they want me to. Even if I do have time, I refuse to play the instrument for them. Yu Rou began sweating when she heard Yuan's decision, and she began trying to convince him, why don't you think about it again, brother? You'll be able to return to your previous spotlight and people will finally stop looking down on you. I also want to hear you play music again. However, Yuan remained reluctant and said, "There's no need for me to think about it. I want to explore the cultivation world of my own free will. If you want to listen to my music, just let me know and I'll play for you, Yu Rou." It was Yu Rou's turn to remain silent this time, and after a long moment of silence, she spoke in almost a crying voice. "Brother? I didn't want to tell you this at first because I know it'll hurt you, but Mother and Father said that if you don't comply, they'll disown you and kick you out of the house." "Oh? Is that so?" Even though Yuan's voice remained somewhat calm, he could feel a painful sensation in his heart for a few seconds after learning that he might be disowned. After all, anybody would feel betrayed if their parents said they'd disown them non-jokingly. Sometime later, Yuan said in a calm yet somewhat cold voice, "If they are going to disown me purely because I don't want to work as a puppet for them again, then they can disown me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life as a puppet. Instead, I want to live the rest of my life to the fullest so I don't have any regrets when I inevitably pass." But where are you going to go, brother? Think about this for a second. You won't be able to survive by yourself. And don't make it sound like you're going to die anytime soon because you're not. Even Dr. Wang said that you're growing healthier. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. It'll be okay, Yu Rou. I will figure something out, and this is a good opportunity to finally set you free from your responsibilities and live a normal life. No, I don't want that. I want to continue taking care of you forever. Yu Rou quickly refused. You know you can't do that, Yu Rou. After all, you also have your own life to live. Yuan sighed, wondering what he can say to convince his little sister to give up on him so that she could also live her life to its fullest. Chapter 231 Planning to Leave the Family? Yu Rou, how about we end this conversation here today? I would like to think about it some more, alone. Yuan suddenly suggested. After a moment of silence, Yu Rou said, "Okay. I'll leave you alone for tonight. Please think about this carefully, brother. I don't want to be separated from you." After turning off the lights, Yu Rou left Yuan's room and returned to her own room. However, just as she prepared to sleep, her phone began ringing. Yu Rou looked at the caller. It was from her father, Yu Yong. "Yes, father? Did you speak to him?" Yu Yong asked her. "I did, father." What was his response? For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Brother Tian. He said that he needed some more time to think about it. Yu Rou said. A cold snort immediately followed and Yu Yong said, "What does he even need to think about?" The answer should already be obvious. Did the illness start affecting his brain? Yu Rou. You tell him that he has 3 days to decide. If he doesn't decide by then, well, decide for him by disowning him. I understand, father. I'll tell brother Tian. Yu Rou tossed her phone on the bed after Yu Yong ended the call. Plop. Yu Rou's body suddenly collapsed onto the bed in an exhausted manner. How did it come to this? I just wanted to live a peaceful life with brother Tian even if I had to take care of him forever. She sighed. Meanwhile, inside his own room, Yuan tossed his plan to cultivate for the night and began pondering what he should do now that he's been thrown into this difficult situation so suddenly. Visit Light Novel Pub. For a better experience. As much as he wanted to remain inside the family and stay with Yu Rou, he didn't want to continue playing the instruments just so his family, mostly his parents, could feed off his fame and hard work. Furthermore, if his family disowns him, he will finally have a good excuse to tell Yu Rou to stop taking care of him so she could also live a normal life. The cultivation world. I want to explore more of it, every nook and cranny if possible. But that won't be possible if I spend most if not all of my time playing the instruments like I used to. But how am I supposed to live alone when my body is like this? Like Yu Rou had said, I cannot survive by myself. Even if I can somehow manage by myself, where can I go? Wait, I should have a bank account with a couple of thousands inside. Maybe I can use that money to move out and then find some way to earn more money. But how can I earn money when I'm in this condition? If only I can earn money just by playing. Yuan proceeded to spend the entire night thinking about his plan just in case his family really decided to disown him. The following morning, Yu Rou came to his room and she asked him in a tired voice, almost like she didn't get any sleep, "Brother, did you think about it?" "Father. He said you only have 3 days to decide or he'll disown you." "I don't need 3 days to decide since I have already come to a decision," Yuan said, and he continued, "I know you want me to stay here, but I really don't want to give up my freedom even in cultivation online as I had in the past. I know you don't want this, but I also want you to live your life without any large responsibilities like taking care of me every day, and it's not like we're not going to see each other ever again. But where are you going to go? Who will take care of you? How are you going to survive? Yu Rou asked him. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. You're probably going to laugh at me for saying this after what I just said, but I'll need your help for a few more things if I want to live by myself. Can you do that for me? If not, I'll just let fate decide my life. Yuan said in a sighing voice. After a moment of silence, Yu Rou sighed. What do you need me to do for you, brother? I'll hear you out at least. What's your plan? I should have an account with a few $1,000s inside, and I'll use that money to move to another place which should last me a couple of months. I'll also use some of that money to hire someone who can take care of me in your place. This way you won't have to worry about me as much anymore. However, I'll need someone you can trust to take care of me. I also plan on making money, but am not sure how I can do that at the moment. Perhaps there is a way I can earn real-life money by playing cultivation online. Yu Rou listened to Yuan's plans with a serious look on her face. I understand your plans. Yu Rou spoke after pondering for a moment and she continued, I guess you can use that money to move out of the house and hire a maid or something, but who will fit that role? I don't think there is anyone that I trust enough to take care of you every day. As for making money through cultivation online, that is very possible, as you can sell items or gold in the game for real-life currency. In fact, it's already a huge market with tens of millions of dollars being traded every day. Really? I can do that? If that's the case, I can simply sell some things and earn money that way, Yuan said. But you'll need someone to do that for you since you obviously can't do it yourself, and that might give away your identity, so it's really risky unless the person doing it can be trusted. Yu Rou sighed. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. Chapter 232 I Can Only Trust You? Well, can you think of someone? I can only think of one person when it comes to trust. Yuan said a moment later. Really? Oh. Yu Rou asked in a truly puzzled voice. Meixiu, Yuan quickly answered. Yu Rou turned silent. It's true that Meixiu can be trusted. But Yu Rou pondered with a perplexed frown on her face. While she can trust Meixiu to take care of Yuan in her stead, even keeping his secret as player Yuan, she was worried that they would develop some sort of relationship with each other from spending too much time together and that her relationship with Yuan might grow further apart as a result. Alright. She's your personal maid, nor can we really separate her from you just to help me, much less giving her such a burden that is me. That would be way too selfish of me. I guess we'll just have to find some random person to help me and hope for the best. If my identity as player Yuan is revealed, it is what it is. I highly doubt that'll make my life more miserable than currently, Yuan sighed. Yu Rou turned silent once again and then she said a moment later, Brother? Let me speak with Meixiu to see if she wants to help you. Of course, I won't command her or anything like that, and it will be entirely up to her whether she helps or not. How does that sound? The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Are you sure? You've been with Meixiu for all your life, and she has been your servant for as long as well. I don't think I can really separate the two of you. Don't worry, brother. It's not like Meixiu will stop helping me. Furthermore, I can say the same to you as Meixiu has been in our lives for almost the same time, and she's almost like a second sister to us at this point. I guess you can go ahead and ask her. However, don't force her, Yu Rou. Even if you are trying to help me, I don't want you to force Meixiu because I want to accept her help if that's the case. Who do you think I am, brother? I'm not unreasonable like some people in this family. I won't force her, I swear. If you say so. Are you going to play today? Yu Rou asked him after their daily routine. No, we'll take a break today. There's nothing to do until next week anyway. Okay. After cleaning up, Yu Rou went to eat her own breakfast and prepared for school. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. On her way to school, Yu Rou asked Meixiu while they sat in the car. Meixiu, I have something important to ask you. Yu Rou stared at Meixiu in the eyes with a serious look on her face. What is it, young lady? Yu Rou took a deep breath, and she began explaining to her the situation regarding Yuan. Well, my parents are thinking about making brother Tian play instruments inside as he used to when he was young, but my brother refused. The thing is, if he refuses, they will disown him and kick him out of the house. What? Meixiu covered her mouth in shock as she could almost not believe her ears. How could the masters? What does the young lady and young master plan on doing? Meixiu couldn't help but ask, as this will definitely change the entire household as a whole. We don't really know yet, but brother Tian intends on leaving the family and living by himself. However, his condition doesn't exactly allow that. Therefore he's thinking about hiring someone else to take care of him, as he doesn't want me to bear the burden anymore. That's very like the young master. Meixiu nodded. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Com, but the problem is that I don't know anyone I trust enough to take care of Brother Tian. There are many bad people out there, heartless people who will mistreat or take advantage of Brother Tian's condition, and I fear that very much. Yu Rou spoke from the bottom of her heart. While it sounded like she was trying to get sympathy from Meixiu so that she could pressure Meixiu with guilt, that was not the case, as Yu Rou truly feared that someone might take advantage of Yuan. Indeed, this world is filled with nasty people. Unexpectedly, Meixiu agreed. Anyways, I have been thinking about people who I trust enough to take care of Brother Tian, and after thinking about it for very long, I could only think of a single person that I trust enough, and that's you, Meixiu. And me? Meixiu pointed at herself with a startled look on her face. But I am the young lattice, I know. Yu Rou quickly interrupted and she continued, I know that you're my personal maid and that you've been for almost my entire life, but I can only trust you to take care of Brother Tian. Of course, I am only asking you, and if you refuse, I won't hold anything against you since I know very well from experience how difficult it could be at times to take care of Brother Tian, especially if you're doing it every day for years, and even Brother himself said that it's all up to you whether you want to listen to our request or not. You don't need to give me an answer right away. Think about it. Well, continue this conversation when we come back home, Yu Rou then said. I understand, young lady. Meixiu nodded, feeling many perplexed emotions in her heart. While Yu Rou went to school, Yuan focused on cultivation. Visit Light Novel Pub? Com for the best novel reading experience. Now that even my own parents have given up hope on me, I can only rely on Yu Rou and myself to survive. I should have expected this outcome sooner or later. Yuan gritted his teeth in frustration, his heart burning with the desire and passion to crawl out of this hellhole. Cultivation is now my only hope to recover. Even if it's not a full recovery, I will be satisfied with a partial recovery. At this moment, unbeknownst to Yuan, the flames within his heart began pulsating, and the golden symbols engraved in his bones began to glow brightly. Chapter 233 Meixiu's Decision. Although Yuan was unaware of the subtle changes within his body, the golden symbols engraved in his bones glowed brightly and emitted this profound aura that attracted the nearby spiritual energy, vastly increasing Yuan's spiritual energy absorption rate. Meanwhile, the mysterious flame inside his heart pulsated as though it had become a heart itself, and with each beat, the spiritual energy had absorbed was instantly purified and enhanced, greatly boosting its effectiveness. With these two profound and mysterious powers inside his body, Yuan's cultivation speed soared to a level that rivaled even his cultivation speed in without eating monster cores. What's going on? Why did my cultivation speed suddenly increase so much? Even without knowledge of what's happening inside his body, Yuan could tell that something had changed, as his cultivation speed had suddenly increased. However, he wasn't complaining. And worried that it was only temporary, Yuan focused on cultivating without thinking about anything else. Whoosh! A fresh feeling suddenly exploded within his body, signaling that he had a breakthrough, reaching 8th level Spirit Apprentice in just 1 hour since he began cultivating. The same refreshing feeling occurred again just 3 hours later, meaning Yuan had another breakthrough, reaching the peak Spirit Apprentice. I had managed to enter Spirit Warrior previously without needing any enlightenment, but that is most likely because of the game. If I want to achieve the same feat in the real world, I'll probably have to experience this enlightenment. Let's see if I can make another breakthrough again. Updated from Lighten/Oval Pub. With that in mind, Yuan began cultivating again. 6 hours later, Yuan could feel his body filled to the brim with spiritual energy, yet he could not enter Spirit Warrior, almost like there was something preventing him from advancing. So this is what Xiao Hua meant by needing enlightenment to continue. However, how does one achieve enlightenment? Yuan began pondering. But alas, no matter how much he thought about it, he had zero clues about enlightenment. I should ask Xiao Hua about it tomorrow. Meanwhile, after school, Yu Rou got into her limousine with Meixiu. Once the door closed and the car began moving, they resumed their conversation from this morning. Have you thought about it, Meixiu? Yu Rou asked her. Meixiu nodded, and then she spoke. Young lady, if you don't mind me asking, what will happen to us if I decide to help the young master? Will I still be serving you? New novel chapters are published on light/novelpub//com. I want you to focus on taking care of my brother, and I don't want to overwork you, so I'll find someone else to take care of my needs. Don't worry, it's not like you're fired. You're just being hired by my brother instead. Yu Rou said. I'll even pay you for him. This way brother Tian will have less burden. I don't really care for the money, young lady. If money is my only reason to work for you, I would have left long ago since I have already saved up enough money to quit my job. Meixiu said. And she continued, I know how much the young master means to you, and I am also indebted to the young master for many things in the past, so if the both of you need my help, I'll do my best. Does this mean you're willing to take care of brother Tian? Yu Rou asked her for confirmation. Meixiu nodded with a slight smile on her face and she said, only if the young lady allows me to continue working for her even if I am already taking care of the young master. Of course, I will still prioritize the young master, but if I have some free time, I would like to work for you then. Meixiu. I don't even know how I should thank you. Yu Rou could feel herself tearing up. You don't have to thank me for anything, young lady. I am merely doing my job. Yu Rou nodded, then it's decided. We'll talk more about this once we return to my brother. New novel chapters are published on lig/novelpub. See //OM. Sometime later, the limousine stopped in front of their home, and Yu Rou and Meixiu headed directly for Yuan's room. Brother. I have great news. Yu Rou said as she opened the door. I can hear you perfectly, Yu Rou. There's no need to scream. Yuan said with a smile on his face. Meixiu, go ahead and tell him. Yu Rou said to Meixiu, who had just entered the room. Meixiu then approached the bed before bending her body and bowing to Yuan. Young master, I, Meixiu, will be in your care starting today. Huh? Does this mean you're willing to leave Yu Rou's side to come work for me? If that's the case, I should be the one saying that. Yuan said in a somewhat dazed voice. Yes, but I won't be leaving the young lad's side. I have decided to work for the both of you, as I'd been trained for this very purpose. Meixiu said. Isn't this great, brother? Now that we have taken care of your caretaker problem, we only have 2 more problems left. Your new home and the most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelpub/com. Yu Rou suddenly stopped in the middle of her sentence. She then went to close the door and continued in a lower voice, Meixiu, we're about to tell you a very big secret that you must not reveal to anybody, not even my parents, okay? Not even the masters? Meixiu swallowed nervously. What kind of secret are they going to tell her? Can you promise to not tell another soul, Meixiu? This secret is very related to taking care of brother Tian as well. Meixiu nodded with a serious look and said, I promise, young lady, that I won't tell another soul even if I'm tortured to death. Gee, that's a little bit extreme, but okay. Yu Rou was taken aback by Meixiu's seriousness. Anyway, do you know about player Yuan? The player that everybody has been talking about recently? Well, that's... Before Yu Rou could even finish her sentence, Meixiu interrupted and said, Player Yuan is the young master, right? I know. Yu Rou stared at her with a shocked face. Chapter 234, A Small Change. Wait a second. You knew? How did you know that I was player Yuan? And how long have you known about it? Yuan asked Meixiu after a moment of silence since Yu Rou was too shocked to speak. I'm pretty sure Wade kept it hidden pretty well. I think... The musical competition, that's how I learned it, Meixiu said in a calm voice. The young lady said the young master was participating in a music competition, and then player Yuan managed to obtain first place in a music competition sometime later. When I asked the young master what kind of instrument he played during his competition, he said it was the zither, which happened to be the same competition player Yuan had won first place, so I assumed that the young master was player Yuan. It was only after the young lad's words just now that confirmed my suspicions. So you've only known about it for a day or so? Yuan asked her. That's correct. Why you didn't tell anybody else about this, did you? Yu Rou finally asked her. Of course not, young lady. It was only a suspicion until just now, anyway. Meixiu shook her head. Well, since you already know, this will make things much easier for us. Brother Tian will need to earn money in the future, and he intends on selling some things in for real money. However, it's obvious that he won't be able to do that by himself, so you'll do that for him. Hence why not just anyone can do this job. Meixiu nodded, I understand. New novel chapters are published on l/i//novelpub.com. By the way, brother Tian, while you've already decided to leave the family, let's wait until the last day so we have more time to prepare. Although we've found someone to take care of you, we still need to look for a new home for you. It's the weekend tomorrow, so we'll call some people and see if they have a place. After all, I'd rather you stay with someone I know. Okay, Yuan said. Yu Rou and Meixiu left the room to prepare dinner for Yuan. An hour later, Yu Rou returned to the room to take care of his needs. Yu Rou, I want to play tonight. I've slept enough this morning. Okay. Yu Rou said as she fixed his long hair and placed the console on his head before turning the power on. While Yuan entered the game, Yu Rou cleaned the place and left his room. Meanwhile, Yuan summoned Xiaohua. Xiaohua, I have a question regarding something you'd said before. When a cultivator reaches peak spirit apprentice, they must experience enlightenment before they can break through to spirit warrior, correct? Visit Light Novel Pub. Com for the best novel reading experience, that's right. Xiaohua nodded. What exactly is this enlightenment? Are there any tricks to it? Why do you want to know, Brother Yuan? You're already a spirit warrior and even about to become a spirit master. Xiaohua asked him. Oh, I am just curious about it since I never got to experience it for myself. Furthermore, it might help me if I need to experience enlightenment for spirit master. Xiaohua nodded and then said, Close your eyes, Brother Yuan. Yuan didn't question her and closed his eyes. Once Yuan closed his eyes, Xiaohua lifted her small hands and poked Yuan between his eyebrows with her finger. A small light appeared between Yuan's forehead for a split second before disappearing. Meanwhile, inside Yuan's head, he was experiencing enlightenment. However, it was not his own enlightenment. Instead, it was Xiaohua's enlightenment when she first broke through to Spirit Warrior, and she was merely sharing her experience with him through a mysterious technique. This content is taken from lig/novelpub. Com, so this is what enlightenment feels like, ha. Yuan mumbled and he opened his eyes a few seconds later. Although it felt much longer inside his head, it only lasted a few seconds in reality. There are really no tricks to receiving enlightenment, Brother Yuan. However, it might help you if you have felt it before. I see. Thanks a bunch, Xiaohua. I'll see you again tomorrow. Yuan immediately logged off and began trying to gain enlightenment for himself while the feeling was still fresh. After taking a deep breath, Yuan recalled what had experienced just now and began cultivating with that in mind. Yuan quickly entered a tranquil state of mind where he thought of nothing, almost like he was half asleep. A few hours later, Yuan felt as though the invisible wall that had been blocking him from progressing had suddenly collapsed, allowing his spiritual energy to flow forward, breaking through to Spirit Warrior. Whoosh. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. A gust of wind appeared in the room despite the closed windows, and the thin blankets covering Yuan's body were sent flying off the bed. In this dark room with all light sources turned off, a faint golden light could be seen around Yuan's body at this moment, and inside Yuan's body he could feel a tingly sensation coursing through his veins across his body. A couple of moments later, the light subdued and the wind disappeared. This is what Spirit Warrior feels like in the real world. I feel more energetic and powerful than I did in Cultivation Online when I first entered Spirit Warrior. With so much energy in his body, Yuan couldn't help but try to move his limbs, and to his surprise, while he couldn't move his arms or legs, he could feel rigid movements in his fingers and toes. I can move. Even though he was barely able to move his fingers and toes for a few seconds, Yuan was ecstatic about this small change, as this meant that he still has hopes for recovery. And to make sure he wasn't imagining things, Yuan spent the next couple of minutes moving his fingers and toes. It's real. I'm not dreaming. I can really move my body. Yuan cried inwardly. For more, visit lightnov/pub. Once head calmed down, Yuan immediately returned to cultivating. If reaching Spirit Warrior helped him recover some control over his own body, what will happen once he reaches Spirit Master and above? Will he be able to move his limbs next? Maybe he'll even be able to walk again. Chapter 235 Looking for a New Home. Even though head broken through to Spirit Warrior, Yuan's cultivation speed did not slow down. Instead, it grew even stronger. In fact, he was absorbing the spiritual energy around him so quickly that it created a very subtle wind in the room, almost like there was a fan on low power inside the room. By the time morning came, Yuan had advanced another level, reaching second-level Spirit Warrior. Meanwhile, after waking up, Yu Rou immediately went to prepare breakfast. Why's the blanket on the floor? Yu Rou thought to herself when she entered the room and saw the blanket on the floor. The windows were closed, so it couldn't have been the wind. However, she didn't think much about it and proceeded with her daily routine. A few hours later, after feeding Yuan and cleaning him up, Yu Rou prepared for her morning practice. After morning practice was finished, Yu Rou returned to her room. However, instead of surfing the internet or playing as she had planned, Yu Rou looked through the contacts on her phone and began calling people she trusted. And while there were a lot of contacts on her phone, only a couple of them truly mattered to her. Yu Rou picked one of these trusted contacts and called it. Ring. This content is taken from /lie/novelpub / / Few rings later, someone picked up the phone. Good morning, young lady. Do you need me for something? Did something happen to the young master? Dr. Wang's voice resounded through the phone. Dr. Wang, how are you doing? Although this is related to Brother Tian, it's not what you are thinking. Yu Rou said, and she continued, due to a few unexpected circumstances, Brother Tian, he's looking for a new place to stay, and I was wondering if you have any places that you're willing to rent to him. As Yu Rou had expected, Dr. Wang made a puzzled noise behind the phone and turned silent for a moment. If you don't mind me asking, why is the young master looking for a new place to stay? What's wrong with his current room? Did he release impurities again? Dr. Wang asked. No, it's nothing like that. I wished it was that simple. Yu Rou sighed. She continued, well, Brother Tian might get kicked out of the house, so we have to look for a new place for him to stay, and I'd prefer it if he rents a place from someone we trust. What? Why would the young master be kicked out of the house? Dr. Wang's flabbergasted voice resounded. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. It's a long story. Yu Rou sighed, and she proceeded to explain the situation to Dr. Wang, mostly because he'll be affected by it sooner or later. After all, once their parents disown Yuan, they will no longer pay for his medical bills. Even if Dr. Wang is a very generous individual, there's no way he'd continue treating Yuan without any payments that would cost him millions each year. Heavens, I can't believe it. To think they'd disown the young master over something like this. Dr. Wang was truly speechless. Don't worry, Dr. Wang. Even if my parents will no longer pay for Brother Tian's treatment, we'll pay for it instead. Yu Rou said. Since she knew how much wealth player Yuan has, if Yuan sold even a portion of his in-game gold and treasures, he'll be able to pay for the medical bills and live comfortably for a while. Young lady, we can talk about that once we get there. For now, let's deal with the situation at hand, and that is finding the young master a new residence. Dr. Wang said. And he continued, while I don't have any free rooms to rent, I have a few guest rooms available in my main home, and if you don't mind, you can move the young master there. That way I can monitor him with more ease. Of course, it'll be free of charge. You don't need to pay me for rent, as your family has donated more than enough to my hospitals. Your main home? Yu Rou immediately hesitated. If this is their main home, Dr. Wang's granddaughter should also be there, and she'd rather not let Yuan so close to her without any supervision. They'll let Brother Tian live there if it's our last resort. The source of this content is / lightnov/lpub/com. With this in mind, Yu Rou said, thank you for your offer, but I can't let Brother Yuan invade your family like this, Dr. Wang. I'll see if there are any other options first. If not, they'll contact you again. I understand. My doors will be open for the young master whenever. I'm sure my granddaughter Wang Xiuying wouldn't mind having the young master here as well. Dr. Wang said. Yu Rou hung up shortly later and exclaimed afterward, she's exactly the reason why I don't want Brother Tian living there. Who knows what that fox might do to my brother when I'm not around. Sometime later, Yu Rou called a few more people but to no avail. Looks like there's only one more person to call. Yu Rou picked up the phone and tapped on the name Xia Jingyi. Ring, 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 Sister Rou. I was just about to call you. Are you going to play Cultivation Online today? I just finished unboxing the console. Oh, something else came up, so I won't be able to play this weekend. Yu Rou said. Visit / lightnovelpub.com for a better experience. What happened? You don't sound happy, Xia Jingyi suddenly asked. After sighing, Yu Rou responded, I'm looking to rent a place for my brother. I don't want to go into the details, but he needs to find a new home soon. Is that so? After a moment of silence, Xia Jingyi said, well, if you're looking for a place, how about I lend you one of the rooms in an apartment owned by my parents? You don't have to pay me anything either. It's also not too far away from our school, so you can visit him after school. Really? Yu Rou immediately became ecstatic after hearing this. Yes. I'll let my parents know that it's occupied so they don't rent it out by accident. Xia Jingyi said. Thank you so much. I'll definitely repay you for this when I get the chance. You don't have to repay me, Sister Rou. After all, we're friends and you've already done enough for me at school. If anything, I should be the one repaying you for everything you've done for me. Xia Jingyi said with a warm smile on her face. Chapter 236 Moving Out? After talking with Xia Jingyi for a few minutes on the phone, Yu Rou hung up and went to Yuan's room to relay the news to him. Brother, I found a place for you to stay at and it's even for free. Really? How did you find this place? Yuan couldn't help but ask. Do you remember that time I mentioned my classmate who was a sweet girl? I spoke to her just now and she said that you can move into her apartment for free. I see. Thank you, Yu Rou, for helping me with this. None of this would have been possible without you. Yuan said. Don't even mention it. Yu Rou chuckled. Anyway, when do you plan on moving out? I can move out now if everything is prepared, Yuan said. Well, you have someone to take care of you and you have a place to stay. Now we just need to worry about your medical expenses and whatnot. Yu Rou said. It's fine, Yu Rou. I don't think you'll need to do any more checkups. After all, I've been doing it for the past 10 years without any different result. It's just a waste of money at this point. Yuan said, not mentioning his slight recovery just yet, as he wanted to be able to move at least his limbs before telling her. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. Are you sure? I still think it would be better if we have Dr. Wang check your body every once in a while. Yu Rou said. I guess we can do that. Anyway, since there's nothing else, we can move whenever you want, brother. Let's move out now. I don't want to stay in this place any longer. Yuan said. Okay. Let me get your wheelchair. Yu Rou went outside and returned a couple of minutes later with the wheelchair. Brother, I think we should get you cleaned first before you leave. After all, it might be more difficult to clean you in your new home. Yu Rou suddenly suggested. Okay. Thus, Yu Rou placed Yuan in the wheelchair before pushing him to the bathroom. Visit li/novelpub.com for a better experience. Once the bathtub was ready with warm water, Yu Rou rinsed Yuan's body and washed him before carrying him into the bathtub. Brother, you've gotten noticeably heavier. I'm already starting to have trouble carrying you. Yu Rou said, and she continued, even your body? It's definitely much meatier than last week, and even your muscles are somewhat refined. Is this because of the soup or something else? Yu Rou was pleasantly surprised when she realized just how much Yuan's body has changed compared to last week. It would be like comparing a skeleton to a healthy body. Who knows, but isn't this a good thing? Maybe he'll even suddenly start walking again next month if it continues like this. Yuan laughed in a non-joking voice. Don't worry, bother. No matter what, I will not lose hope. Even if our parents give up, I will never give up on you. Yu Rou said in a somewhat sobbing voice. If Yuan could turn around and see Yu Rou's face right now, he would see tears dripping from her beautiful face. Yu Rou. Yuan sighed. While I cannot do anything for her in this world, if it's cultivation online, after thinking for a moment, Yuan said, Yu Rou. You've always wanted me to return to the spotlight, right? The most up-to-date novels are published on /lighten/ovalpub.com, eh? Hearing Yuan's sudden question, Yu Rou quickly wiped her tears and said, of course. Brother's the most handsome when he's surrounded in that dazzling light, and I want people to look at you in admiration like previously. I don't know when he'll be able to return to that spotlight in this world, but in cultivation online, where I can use my body to its full extent and more, I'll do my best. What are you talking about, brother? You're already in the spotlight. People just don't know it's you, yet. Yu Rou laughed slightly. I know. That's why I'll reveal my identity, I'll let the world know who player Yuan is so they'll know it's me. Yuan suddenly said, shocking Yu Rou. What? If you do that, you'll... Of course I am not going to reveal it now, but once I'm ready, I'll let the world know. The only reason I've been keeping this identity a secret is so that our peaceful life won't be disturbed. However, now that our peace has been disturbed, it wouldn't matter if I reveal my identity or not. Perhaps I'll even get some help that way. While that is true, that's a very risky move. Who knows what will happen once the world learns of your real identity, especially the legacy families? They're the ones you should be the most worried about since you've taken their spotlights. I see. Yuan mumbled. After submerging themselves in the bathtub for many minutes, Yu Rou carried Yuan out of the bathtub and placed him on the drying table whilst she went to dry herself with a towel. Visit l/i/tno/vel/pub.com for the best novel reading experience. Once she was fully dressed, Yu Rou helped Yuan put on his clothes before carrying him back to his wheelchair. Upon leaving the bathroom, Yu Rou went to speak with Meixiu. Meixiu, I'll bring brother Tian to his new living quarters now. Can you pack his things in the meantime? It's mostly just his clothes and the console, Yu Rou said to her. I understand. Meixiu nodded. Once Yu Rou and Yuan left the place, Meixiu immediately began packing Yuan's clothes. And just like Yu Rou had said, there really wasn't much to pack besides some clothes and pajamas. In fact, the biggest thing she had to pack was the gaming device that took up an entire suitcase by itself. Meanwhile, Yu Rou entered the limousine with Yuan and made their way to the apartment that was only 3 miles away from the school she was attending, and she called Xia Jingyi before leaving the house to let her know that they were heading there now. Chapter 237-17F. Half an hour after leaving the house, the limousine stopped in front of a large apartment that had over 20 floors, and Yu Rou pushed Yuan towards the entrance, where a young lady with 2 large assets was standing. Sister Rou. Xia Jingyi waved at her with a delightful look on her face upon seeing their figures. I'm sorry for coming here on such short notice, Jingyi, Yu Rou said with an apologetic smile. Don't even mention it. I don't live that far away from here anyway. Xia Jingyi said. She then looked at Yuan and said, Hello, Sister Rou's elder brother. My name is Xia Jingyi, a fellow classmate. It's really nice to finally meet you. My name's Tian. Thank you for letting me stay here. When I get the chance, I'll definitely repay you. We can talk about that later, Xia Jingyi said, and she continued, Come, let me show you your room. There were 2 entrances they had to pass before reaching the elevators. The first entrance led to a small lobby where the mailboxes are kept, whilst the second entrance led to the receptionists and elevators. Your room will be on the 17th floor, Xia Jingyi said as she pressed the button inside the elevator. The elevator door closed and they began ascending quickly. For more, visit Lighten/Oval Pub. C/Om. A few moments later, they arrived on the 17th floor. Ding. The door opened and Xia Jingyi walked out, followed by Yu Rou and Yuan. Xia Jingyi stopped in front of the door at the end of the hall and said, This is 17F, it's the largest and most luxurious room on this floor. Are you sure? Yuan spoke in a hesitant voice and he continued, You can just give me one of the ordinary rooms. I don't want to feel like I am taking advantage of your kindness, especially since I am living here for free. Xia Jingyi chuckled and said, Sister Rou always mentioned how kind and humble you are. Don't worry, it's just one room. It won't affect us at all. Here's the keys and a spare one. Xia Jingyi handed Yu Rou 2 sets of keys after unlocking the doors. Thank you. Let me show you around. Xia Jingyi opened the door and went inside the apartment room. Visit Light Novel Pub. Come for a better experience. There is a living room, a kitchen, 1 bathroom with its bathtub and shower separated, 3 bedrooms and a balcony. Also, everything in here is new, so it's not been used before. What do you think? After a quick tour around the place, Yu Rou nodded. If I have to be honest, it's much larger than necessary. And she continued, The bedroom is good and the bathroom is also big enough. I don't have any complaints. That's great. Then you can move here whenever you feel like it. The keys are already in your hands. Once again, thank you for this, Jingyi, Yu Rou said to her. After talking for some time, Xia Jingyi, if you ever need me, just call my number and I'll see what I can do. Okay, Yuan said. By the way, Sister Rou, before I leave you 2 alone, I am currently in the eastern continent at some place called Red Pearl City. Yu Rou nodded and said, He'll see how far away it is and if he'll be able to get there. Updated from Light Novel Pub. Okay. He'll go do some quests and cultivate some more in the meantime. After Xia Jingyi left the place, Yuan said, He'll let Feng Feng know. She should be able to help you meet her since you're both within the eastern continent. Sounds great. Anyways, let's put you on your new bed so we can get some feedback. If you don't like it, we can change the mattress. Yu Rou proceeded to push the wheelchair into the largest bedroom before carrying Yuan onto the bed. Well, what do you think? It's a bit softer than what I'm used to, but I think I like this better. I'll ask you again in a few days. Yu Rou said. Ring ring, it's Meixiu. Yu Rou said after seeing the caller on her phone. Visit lightnovel/pu/b. Com for a better experience. Are you on your way here, Meixiu? Yes. I'm on my way to the address you gave me. Okay, call me again when you're downstairs. After hanging up, Yu Rou and Yuan began talking more about their plans until Meixiu called again. Once Meixiu arrived, Yu Rou went downstairs to meet her before coming back up. This will be Brother Tian's new home. Yu Rou gave Meixiu a tour around the place. This place is very close to school, which will make things far more convenient for the both of us. Meixiu nodded and then she asked, What else needs to be done? Well, there's really nothing else to do. Alright. Yu Rou suddenly recalled. Visit Light Novel Pub. C/OM for a better experience. We need to find a way for Brother Tian to sell his in-game items for real-life currency. It would be risky if Brother Tian traded the treasures personally, so it would be for the best if he handed you the treasures instead. In other words, we need you to play cultivation online. I understand. Meixiu nodded, feeling like it was a weird thing for her to play video games since she has never really touched them before besides a few occasions when Yu Rou wanted to play with her. Hopefully you are also in the Eastern continent, or that will make things complicated, Yuan said. And he continued, though Feng Feng should still be able to pick you up. I'll ask her later. Feng Feng? Meixiu raised her eyebrows. Yes, she's a phoenix who can fly at extreme speeds. She'll probably be able to travel to other continents with ease as well. Anyways, we can figure the rest of this out once you create your character. Okay. Sometime later, Yu Rou began unpacking Yuan's luggage whilst Meixiu went to clean the house that was slightly dusty. Once that was done, Meixiu went outside to buy a console so she could play cultivation online later. This content is taken from lightno/velpub. Come. Chapter 238 Meixiu's Evaluation. Meixiu returned to the apartment half an hour later with the console in her grasp. Great. Why don't you start playing now? Yu Rou said to her. You want me to play right now, young lady? Meixiu raised her eyebrows. Yu Rou nodded. There's nothing else to do until dinner anyways. If that's what you want, let's go to the other room. Yu Rou and Meixiu went to the room next to Yuan's room a few moments later. Once Meixiu laid on the bed and placed the helmet on her head, Yu Rou said to her, you can log off after creating your character and looking at the map to see which continent you're on. You'll be transported to one of the 4 available continents randomly, so let's pray that you end up in the Eastern continent. See you in a bit. After pressing the power button, Meixiu could feel her consciousness leaving her body and moving elsewhere, feeling almost like she was ascending to heaven or something similar. A few moments later, she found herself inside a white room that had been visited by every other player in the world. Click. The source of this content is lighten/ovelpu //b/com. The space before her suddenly cracked, and to Meixiu's surprise, a young lady around her age appeared from the crack. So you're someone from the missing piece, huh? I was wondering if you guys were anything special, but looking at you now, you don't seem any different than the mortals in our world. The young lady said in a somewhat disappointed voice after staring at Meixiu for a second. Meixiu had many questions in her head, but she wasn't able to ask any of them due to the young lady speaking before she could. Place your hand on this crystal ball so we can get this over with. I've already lost my interest. Meixiu decided to not ask any questions and placed her hands on the crystal ball. A few moments later, her status appeared. Name: Meixiu Cultivation, none legacy, none new novel chapters are published on lighten/ov/lpub.com. Bloodline, none physique, spirit severing physique. Physical strength, 82 mental strength, 220 soul strength, 555 physical defense, 34 mental defense, 150 incho? The young lattice eyebrows raised in a slightly surprised manner when she saw Meixiu's seemingly high stats. Visit lightnov/lpub.com for a better experience. Spirit severing physique, huh? Not bad at all. Since you have a divine rank physique, you're qualified to become a servant for me at the very least. Here, take this. If you ever reach the upper heavens, come find me at the Chu family and show this to the people there. The young lady surnamed Chu tossed a jade medallion to her before turning around and walking into the crack. A few moments after the young lady disappeared from the white room, Meixiu was teleported to mountain number 189, one of the thousands of floating mountains around that place, and despite the gaming being out for many weeks now, there were still tens of thousands of new players every day. After standing around for a few minutes, an NPC appeared before them in the sky, and he began explaining to them about the cultivation world. Once the explanation ended, he gave the players the basic chi gathering technique alongside a talisman that told the players their physique's rank. Rank. Divine. Meixiu stared at the word on her talisman that would make countless players and NPCs alike jealous with a somewhat tranquil look on her face, almost like she didn't really care. If you have a heaven rank or above physique here, raise your hand. The cultivator in the sky said. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnov/e/l/pub.com. However, nobody raised their hands. The cultivator sucked his teeth in disappointment after seeing this, and he quickly said afterward, my time is precious and limited. You can all get out of my face now. And with a wave of his sleeves, all of the players there were sent flying towards the portals in the back. Once she was standing again, Meixiu brought up the map. Western continent. Meixiu sighed before logging off the game like Yu Rou had told her to. After logging off the game, Meixiu removed the helmet from her head and got off the bed. Young lady, I am done. Meixiu knocked on Yuan's door. Already? That was quick. Yu Rou opened the door for her and she continued, well? Did you spawn within the eastern continent? Meixiu shook her head and said, unfortunately I did not, young lady. I am currently within the western continent. Updated from lightnovel./b/com, how unlucky. Yu Rou also sighed. It'll be fine. I'll talk to Feng Feng after this and see if there's any way we can bring her to the eastern continent. Yuan said. Okay. Sometime later Yu Rou said, I'll go prepare for your dinner now. Oh wait. We don't have any ingredients to cook with since we didn't go shopping yet. Let me go order some groceries now. Yu Rou opened her phone and began buying groceries on a shopping app, allowing them to receive food and groceries without leaving the house. An hour later, someone knocked on their door and handed off the groceries to Meixiu. I'll cook dinner, young lady, Meixiu said. However, Yu Rou immediately refused and said, although this won't be my last time cooking for brother Tian, I won't be able to cook for him as often, so I want to do it properly like usual. You can just relax, Meixiu. After all, you'll be working hard starting tomorrow. Updated from l/i/novelpub/c/om, if you say so, young lady? Meixiu nodded, and she proceeded to sit on the couch doing nothing but stare at the space in front of her with a dazed look. Yu Rou was speechless by this and she sighed, if you want, you can help me wash the vegetables, I guess. I shall do that then. Meixiu immediately stood up and went to the sink to wash the vegetables. Just how much of a workaholic are you, Meixiu? You're still too young to be acting like this. Yu Rou shook her head as she didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Meixiu's desire for work. Chapter 239 The Truth. After cooking dinner and feeding Yuan, Yu Rou said, even though you'd moved out of the house and everything, there's still about 2 days before you're officially disowned, so I plan on keeping it a secret until then. Who knows, maybe mother and father will even change their minds about disowning you. Okay. However, even if they change their mind, I have already decided to leave the family. After all, if one day I recover from this condition, I don't want them to believe that it was all due to their help. I want to prove to them and myself that I can survive even without them. Yuan said. If that's your decision, brother, I won't say anything else. I also believe that you'll one day make a full recovery, said Yu Rou. Anyways, it's getting late, so we'll head home tonight. We'll be back tomorrow though. Yu Rou said. Okay. See you tomorrow. After leaving Yuan's apartment, Yu Rou locked the door with the spare keys and quickly returned home. Meanwhile, Meixiu stayed behind to take care of Yuan. Do you need anything, young master? Meixiu asked him. Yes, I actually do. Meixiu, can you stop calling me young master? I am no longer part of the Yu family, and there's no need to be so formal to me. Just call my Yu Tian or even better, Yuan. The source of this content is lightnovelpub.com. Meixiu did not immediately respond. After a moment of silence, she suddenly asked him, when do you plan on telling the young lady the truth? The truth, huh? A bittersweet smile appeared on Yuan's face and he said, I wanted to tell her yesterday. No, I planned on telling her if she refused to let me leave the family, but I guess that's no longer needed. However, that's not to say I intend on keeping that secret forever. Once the time is right, I'll tell her. I understand. Thank you, Meixiu. Yuan suddenly said, and he continued, thank you for not telling her even though you work with her pretty much every day. New novel chapters are published on lightnov/lpub.com. It's not a big deal really. I don't think it would change your relationship that much even if she knew. Perhaps. But I don't want to risk it. Yuan sighed. But she will find out sooner or later, especially now that you're no longer part of the family. Meixiu said, and she continued, who knows, maybe the masters will reveal everything to her once they officially disown you. Yuan turned silent after hearing her words. And he spoke in a solemn voice, if that happens, it is what is it? Meixiu shook her head and sighed, I really don't understand you sometimes, young master, Yuan. How hard would it really be for you to say we're not blood-related since I was adopted into the family? You won't understand it even if I told you, Meixiu. The fear of being ignored once someone realizes that you're not who they think you are. Yuan sighed. I don't think the young lady is that kind of person. Even if you're not real siblings, she won't abandon you. Meixiu said. Updated from lightnovelpo/b/com. I know she's not, and she most likely won't abandon me, but I still fear that minuscule possibility, and I can't shake off this feeling no matter how much I try. Or really don't want her to hate me for lying to her all these years. I wouldn't consider that lying, so neither should you. After all, everyone has a secret or two in their lives. Don't think too much about it. Meixiu shook her head. If our parents don't tell her first, he'll tell her the truth once I recover from my condition somewhat, Yuan said. Meixiu looked at Yuan's still body for a moment before speaking. Yuan, do you really believe that you'll be able to recover fully? Yuan chuckled at her words and said, of course not. However, there's no harm in hoping for the best. I see. Anyway, you can go rest. They'll be on Cultivation Online tonight to see if I can bring you to the Eastern Continent. Yuan said. I understand. Good night. Good night. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelps.ub. Once Yuan entered the game, Meixiu went to the bathroom to wash herself before going to sleep shortly later. Inside the game, Yuan called for Feng Yuxiang and asked her, Feng, do you think you can bring someone from the Western Continent to the Eastern Continent? The Western Continent? I can. But why? I have a friend there and I have some business with her. How long do you think it'll take to bring her here? It shouldn't take too long. Probably a few days, even less if we take the teleportation devices. Do you want me to bring your friend from the Western Continent here, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked. Yuan nodded and he said, yes, but before that, can you bring my sister, Yu Rou, to a place called Red Pearl City? She's still in Phoenix City and her permit expired. Feng Yuxiang nodded. That won't be a problem. When do you want me to go? You can start making your way there now. They'll tell her to meet you there sometime tomorrow. Yuan said. It's fine, I have memorized her aura, so I will be able to find her no matter where she is as long as she's within the city. However, it'll still be better to have a meeting point. How about the Golden Phoenix Bazaar where we first met? Visit Light Novel Pub. For a better experience, okay. I'll tell her that. Then I'll be back after I transport your sister. See you later, young master. Thank you for your help, Feng. Don't even mention it, young master. It's my pleasure to assist you. Feng Yuxiang left the Dragon Essence Temple shortly later and soared towards Phoenix City, shocking the sect elders and disciples within the sect with her fiery appearance. And shortly after Feng Yuxiang left, someone knocked on the door to Yuan's house. Is this where Disciple Yuan lives? You had an official match today and you missed it. If you don't show up tomorrow, you'll be punished according to the sect rules. What? Yuan was shocked when he heard this. Where did this match come from? And who's he fighting? Chapter 240 Official Match. After hearing the knock on the doors, Yuan went downstairs to see who was knocking on the door. Upon seeing the middle-aged man standing before him, Yuan asked, Excuse me, but what do you mean by official match? I don't remember accepting any matches. The sect elder standing outside then pulled out a logbook and pointed at his name that was written on one of the pages. Is this not you? Yuan looked at the logbook. Outer Court Disciple Yuan versus Outer Court Disciple Wu Laohu. That is indeed my name, but I don't recall agreeing to any matches. Yuan was baffled to see that unreasonable disciple's name next to his name. And he wondered, how did he even learn my name? I don't remember giving it to him. Unbeknownst to Yuan, whenever a disciple challenges another disciple to a death match, regardless if the challenge is accepted or not, their names will be recorded in a jade slip at the dispute hall so the sect elders can keep watch of them, and that's how Wu Laohu learned of his name. I don't know your situation, Disciple Yuan, but it's an official match, and if you don't participate tomorrow, you'll be punished according to the sect rules. The sect elder said, thinking to himself that Yuan must be backing out after agreeing to fight Wu Laohu. Is there no way to cancel the match? Yuan asked as he really didn't feel like fighting without any reason. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. The sect elder shook his head and said, after your name is written in the logbook and a sect elder stamps it, you must participate in the fight no matter what. However, if both you and Wu Laohu agree to end the match, we can stop it. I doubt that person will agree to stop the fight, especially since he was the one who started it. Yuan sighed inwardly. Xiaohua's voice suddenly resounded inside his head. Brother Yuan, just accept the challenge and fight him. That disciple is the type of people who won't give up until the bitter end, so it's better to just give him what he wants. You'll take care of him easily anyways. Since I have no choice but to fight him, I guess so. Yuan then nodded. I understand. He'll show up for the match tomorrow. Good. The match will begin at the peak of sunrise tomorrow morning. The sect elder said to him before leaving. After returning to his room, Xiaohua appeared and said, Brother Yuan, there will be times when you must step onto the stage and fight even if there are no good reasons for it. That's just the cultivation world. You fight and fight and fight until nobody dares to fight you anymore. If you don't accept these challenges, people will think you're a pushover and continue pressuring and bullying you. That's why the best thing to do is to just fight them. Huh? Yuan laid on the bed and stared at the empty ceiling with a dazed look on his face. Visit lighten/uvel/p/ub.com for the best novel reading experience. Thank you, Xiaohua. I think I know what to do tomorrow. Yuan nodded. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Xiaohua. I just logged on to speak with Feng Feng for a bit. Okay. Good night, Brother Yuan. After Xiaohua returned to the necklace, Yuan logged off and proceeded to cultivate until morning. Good morning, Yuan. Meixiu entered his room early in the morning already with breakfast prepared. Good morning, Meixiu. Sometime later, Meixiu began feeding Yuan soup. What do you think? Does it suit your taste? Meixiu asked. Yes. For more, visit lighten//ovalpub/com. After breakfast, Yuan said, By the way, Meixiu, I have a way to get you to the eastern continent in just a few days. I'll let you know when it happens. I understand. After cleaning up, Meixiu said, The young lady should be here in half an hour. I have something to take care of in cultivation online, so I won't be able to greet her when she arrives, Yuan said. I understand. I'll notify the young lady. Sometime later, Yuan went into cultivation online whilst Meixiu waited for Yu Rou's arrival. Once Yuan returned to his room in the Dragon Essence Temple, he left the house and made his way to the sparring area where matches between disciples are held almost every day, whether it be deathmatch or just casual sparring. About 20 minutes later, Yuan arrived at the area, and to his surprise, there was already a large crowd there with all of them surrounding a large platform. I heard Mad Tiger's opponent was too scared to show up yesterday? Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. That's right. We waited for the entire day and the bastard never showed up despite agreeing to this fight. What a spineless coward. Then how do we know he'll be showing up today? Apparently one of the sect elders spoke with him last night and confirmed that he will be showing up today. I see. While the disciples made fun of Yuan for not showing up yesterday, Yuan approached the stage that had two people on it, Wu Laohu and a sect elder. Look who decided to finally show up. Did you finally stop shitting your pants? Wu Laohu laughed out loud when he noticed Yuan's approaching figure. The disciples there quickly turned to look at Yuan's handsome face, even making a path for him so he could enter the stage. A few moments later, Yuan stepped onto the large stage and stood a couple of meters away from Wu Laohu. Where were you yesterday? The sect elder looked at Yuan with a frown on his face. The source of this content is /lightno/v/lpub.com. I didn't know I had a match yesterday because I never agreed to fight him, Yuan responded in a calm voice. The sect elder coldly snorted at his words and said, Bullshit. I personally witnessed you agreeing to the fight, yet you dare claim that it never happened? I didn't know you were this shameless. Yuan frowned at the sect elder's words. Was he involved in this scandal as well? Chapter 241. I'm gonna make an example out of you. Disciple Yuan, right? I can still forgive you for your audacious behavior if you kowtow before me and beg for forgiveness. Wu Laohu laughed out loud in a provocative manner. However, Yuan remained calm and said, If you fight every person that you bump into, you'll eventually bump into the wrong person and regret it. Yuan's words wiped the smile off Wu Laohu's face and Wu Laohu sneered, I changed my mind. Even if you beg for forgiveness, it's already too late. I'm going to beat you until even your mother won't recognize you. Elder Cheng, you can start the match. Elder Cheng nodded and said, The rules for this match are simple. You fight until either one of you faints. The disciples were shocked when they heard the rules. Normally, one can end the fight by surrendering or leaving the stage, but according to Elder Cheng's words, they only lose when one of them loses consciousness. Isn't this basically a death match but without the death part? What? I have never seen such rules before. Did Elder Cheng and Mad Tiger plan this fight? I have heard rumors of it happening before as well. Sure. Don't let them hear you or you'll be on the stage next. Yuan's eyebrows twitched when he heard these disciples' whispers. Apparently, this isn't Wu Laohu's first time doing something like forcing another disciple to fight him. Why am I not surprised? Yuan sighed inwardly. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. This is the true nature of the cultivation world, Brother Yuan. People will do whatever they can to achieve their goals. Xiao Hua's voice resounded inside his head. Elder Qing then continued, weapons are allowed in this match, but you are not allowed to use treasures. Furthermore, you are not allowed to kill each other. Elder Qing looked at Wu Laohu as he said the last sentence, almost like it was specifically meant for him. After all, even though he can help Wu Laohu rig a match, he won't be able to save him if he kills another disciple. Seeing Elder Qing's gaze, Wu Laohu showed a smile that said, "Don't worry, I won't kill him." Elder Qing nodded. He then turned to look at Yuan and said, "Are you ready to fight?" "I am," Yuan responded calmly. Wu Laohu retrieved an ordinary sword from his storage pouch and swung it around a few times with excitement in his movements. Meanwhile, Yuan simply stood there without moving a single finger. Since he couldn't use treasures, all of his weapons were restricted. With that being said, he never planned on using a weapon to begin with. The source of this content is lig/ht/novel/pub/com. Does that disciple intend on fighting Mad Tiger without a weapon? He's a madman. The disciples were dumbfounded when they saw this, and they couldn't tell if it was arrogance or stupidity. Wu Laohu frowned when he saw this, thinking that Yuan was looking down on him. As if I need a weapon to best your ass. In fact, I can beat you even more without a weapon. Wu Laohu tossed his sword back into the storage pouch a few seconds later. Meanwhile, many meters in the distance, hidden from plain sight, an old woman wearing high-ranking sect elder robes watched the match with a smile on her face. The sect master told me to protect him, but he also told me to not interfere unless necessary. While I could have prevented this match from even happening in the first place, that wouldn't be fair to disciple Yuan who wanted to experience life as a disciple, right? This old lady was a high-ranking sect elder who worked at the dispute hall. Even though she could have stopped Wu Laohu and Elder Cheng from rigging this match, she purposefully allowed this match to continue so that Yuan could experience the true nature of the cultivation world and sects where unfairness is in every corner. While the Dragon Essence Temple tries its best to keep certain things fair for the disciples, they only keep it to a minimum as a way to teach the disciples the laws of the jungle and prepare them for the outside world where everything is much worse. Once both disciples were ready, Elder Cheng left the stage and said, "You may now begin the match." This content is taken from lightnov/lpub/com. Immediately after Elder Cheng's words ended, Wu Laohu kicked his feet and rushed at Yuan with a bloodthirsty look on his face. "I'm gonna make an example out of you and show the others what happens when you offend me, Mad Tiger Wu Laohu." Once he was close enough, Wu Laohu began clawing his hands at Yuan like a tiger relentlessly. However, to the disciples' surprise, Yuan casually dodged every strike with a graceful movement technique they have never seen before. What kind of movement technique is that? I don't know, but look at his feet. You can see a trail of flames wherever he moves. I guess this disciple has some ability after all. The disciples were excited to see Yuan holding his own ground, but some of them still wanted to see a beatdown. Follow current novels on /lightnovelpub/com. Is that all you can do? Dodge. Fight me. Wu Laohu began getting irritated after a couple of minutes, feeling as though he was fighting an invisible enemy who he cannot hit. Yuan remained silent as he continued dodging Wu Laohu's strikes. A few more moments later, Yuan suddenly said, "I didn't want to fight, but you forced my hands." Suddenly, Yuan disappeared from Wu Laohu's view and distanced himself. "Where do you think you're going?" Wu Laohu quickly turned around and chased after Yuan. However, before he could even take 2 steps, Wu Laohu suddenly stopped moving and stood there like a statue, puzzling the spectators. Meanwhile, Yuan stood there with a cold expression on his face, his eyes glowing brightly with a golden color as he activated Dragon's Gaze for the first time. This is, visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. Wu Laohu's body trembled uncontrollably after seeing Yuan's golden eyes that emitted a feeling of absolute dominance. Under the effects of Dragon's Gaze, Wu Laohu suddenly felt as though the entire world had darkened and the passage of time had stopped, and the only thing he could see was these 2 glowing eyes in the distance that were threatening his very existence. Chapter 242. There's no surrendering in this match. After activating Dragon's Gaze for the first time since he learned it, Yuan continued to stare at Wu Laohu like a predator staring at its prey. Since he could not use his treasures, nor did he intend on using any weapons, this was the only way he could deal with Wu Laohu without gravely injuring him. What's happening to Mad Tiger? He suddenly stopped moving. Look at his face. It's twisted with fear for some reason. What? How is that possible? The disciples and Elder Qing there turned their heads to look at Yuan, and to their surprise when they saw his golden eyes, their bodies trembled with profound fear despite not being targeted by the terrorizing gaze. What kind of terrifying technique is that? I have never experienced such fear in my life, not even when I nearly died that one time. Elder Qing could feel his legs shaking uncontrollably, almost like there was an ongoing earthquake. While the disciples and Elder Qing were quaking in their boots by the unfathomable aura emitted by the dragon's gaze, Wu Laohu, who was directly targeted by this gaze, felt 100 times worse, almost as though he was staring at a divine beast at this moment. What am I looking at? Why is everything so dark? Where am I? Who am I? As though had lost his mind, Wu Laohu began questioning his own existence. The source of this content is /lig/tno/velpub/com. Unbeknownst to Wu Laohu, had pissed his pants, creating a yellow puddle underneath his feet and shocking the crowd. In fact, even after pissing his pants, Wu Laohu remained oblivious to that fact, as he was too fearful to notice anything. Furthermore, he didn't dare to look away from Yuan's threatening gaze even for a split second, as he feared that if he looked away, Yuan would immediately kill him. You forced my hand. Yuan suddenly said, startling Wu Laohu. What did you just say? Wu Laohu mumbled in a low voice. I said, this is all your fault. Boom. Yuan's aura suddenly exploded, and his eyes began glowing even more brightly. Follow current novels on lightnovelpub.com. Amazing. He's releasing an aura that's similar to Spirit Warriors, but he's only at the peak of Spirit Apprentice. The disciples were shocked by Yuan's sudden display of prowess. Cough. Unable to bear Yuan's dragon's gaze any longer, Wu Laohu coughed up a mouthful of blood, staining the marble floor red. However, he didn't fall unconscious just yet and is barely holding on. If you didn't provoke me, none of this would have happened. If you didn't force this match, I wouldn't need to do this. Yuan spoke in a calm voice as he began moving again, making his way towards Wu Laohu. Stay away from me. Wu Laohu spoke with a terrified voice, feeling a strong desire to turn around and run away, yet he remained standing there rooted in fear. Before he realized it, Yuan was already standing in front of him like a towering giant. Please. I forfeit. I surrender this match. Wu Laohu shouted out loud, sounding like he was beginning for his life. However, Yuan calmly resounded, Surrender? Did you forget? There's no surrendering in this match. It'll only end when one of us loses consciousness. This content is taken from lee/novel/pub.com. The moment his sentence ended, Yuan increased the intensity of his dragon's gaze, pressuring Wu Laohu even more. Cough. Wu Laohu coughed up another mouthful of blood, feeling his vision becoming blurry. Perhaps I should just kill you right here and right now so you will never be able to bother me again. Yuan spoke in a cold voice, his eyes narrowing slightly. What? Wu Laohu's eyes widened with shock, and he could feel bloodlust coming from Yuan's gaze. He's not bluffing. He'll really kill me, Wu Laohu thought to himself. Unfortunately for Wu Laohu, due to the influence of Dragon's gaze, he was in no condition to think logically, hence why he forgot about the sect rules regarding disciples killing another disciple. Die. Yuan activated Dragon's gaze to almost full power, sending Wu Laohu into shock. Visit l/iton/ovalpub.com for a better experience. Wu Laohu's eyes rolled behind his head with his body falling backward. But Wu Laohu's body collapsed onto the floor a moment later with foam coming out of his mouth. The entire place turned dead silent when they realized what had just happened. Mad Tiger lost consciousness. It's that disciple's win. He defeated the third-ranked outer court disciple without lifting a single finger. One of the disciples there exclaimed after a moment of silence. After defeating Wu Laohu, Yuan closed his eyes and rubbed them for a few seconds. Once he reopened his eyes, they returned to normal. This is my win, right? Yuan turned to look at Elder Qing and spoke. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovel/p/ub.com. Gulp. Elder Qing swallowed nervously as a chill went down his spine. Even though Yuan was no longer using Dragon's gaze, Elder Qing's body subconsciously reacted even to Yuan's gaze. Just who is this outer court disciple? He cried inwardly. Suddenly, a burst of loud laughter resounded in the area, causing everybody there to turn around, and to their surprise an old lady was approaching the arena. Who is that sect elder? The outer court disciples there were unfamiliar with this old lady's appearance. However, Elder Qing's eyes widened with shock when he saw this old lady, as there was no way he'd not recognize the person he's working for, his boss. Senior Elder Dai. Elder Cheng immediately bowed to her. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnov/lpub. Elder Dai stopped in front of Elder Cheng and spoke in a calm voice. Elder Cheng, what's going on here? And nothing out of the ordinary, Senior Elder Dai. It's just two outer court disciples sparring with each other. Elder Cheng responded with a stiff smile on his face. Is that so? Elder Dai nodded with an oblivious look on her face, acting as if she didn't know any better. And she continued, you may return to the dispute hall. I'll handle things from here. You will? Elder Cheng looked at her with a gawking expression. Why does she, a high-ranking sect elder, want to handle something like a match between two outer court disciples? Chapter 243 Becoming Famous in the Outer Court? Do I have to repeat myself? The calm look on Elder Dai's face suddenly turned cold, causing Elder Cheng to tremble. No. I will leave this to you, Senior Elder. Elder Cheng bowed to Elder Dai again before leaving the area in large strides. Once Elder Cheng was gone, Elder Dai looked at the outer court disciples and said, someone bring me a bucket of cold water. Now. Immediately after Elder Dai's words, most of the disciples there scrambled to get a bucket of cold water. While they waited for the water, Elder Dai looked at Yuan and asked him, that was a marvelous display of technique. However, why didn't you strike him? It would have ended much sooner if you just knocked him unconscious with your fists. After a moment of silence, Yuan spoke in a calm voice, because I was taught that intimidation works better than violence. Even if I'd beaten him, I don't think he will give up, and he will eventually come to bother me again. Is that so? Elder Dai nodded. Anyways, congratulations on defeating Wu Laohu, who was ranked 3rd. Since you defeated him, you'll now replace his spot as 3rd. Meanwhile, somewhere within the outer court, on the outer court disciples' power ranking, Wu Laohu's 3rd place was replaced by Yuan's name before being pushed down to the 4th place, shocking the disciples that were there to witness this change. Disciple Yuan? Who's this? I don't recognize this name. Where the heck did he come from? Defeating that mad tiger is no easy feat. For more, visit li/gitnov/lpub. Small uproar occurred within the sect on that day with Yuan's name spreading like a wildfire. A few minutes after the disciples left to get a cold bucket of water, one of the disciples finally returned with a large bucket of cold water. Here you go, Senior. The disciple handed the cold bucket to Elder Dai, who immediately went onto the stage and dumped the entire cold bucket on Wu Laohu's unconscious body. What? Yeah. Wu Laohu woke up screaming as though he was just having a nightmare. Where am I? He looked around with a dazed look on his wet face, clearly puzzled by his situation. However, when he saw Yuan's handsome figure standing not far away, Wu Laohu recalled everything that had happened and immediately ran away. Monster. Get away from me. Help. Follow current novels on Lighten/Ovalpub. Before Wu Laohu could run very far, Elder Dai appeared in front of him and slapped him in the face, causing him to fall on the floor again. Looks like you're still quite healthy. Elder Dai said in a nonchalant voice, and she continued, you're lucky this wasn't a death match, young man. Come with me, I have a lot to say to you. Although he was puzzled, Wu Laohu nodded regardless. Senior, Yuan suddenly spoke, but Elder Dai shook her head and interrupted, you don't have to tell me anything. I know what happened. They forced this match upon you even though you didn't accept it. Don't worry, I will punish them according to the sect rules. Hearing Elder Dai's words, Yuan nodded and said, thank you. Heavens, I was right. Wu Laohu and Elder Cheng actually conspired against this disciple Yuan with this fixed match. What an unfair match. But they still lost in the end. How hilarious. Sometime later, Yuan left the scene, and the other disciples also left shortly later to spread the news of Wu Laohu's miserable loss. For more, visit l/itnovelpub//com. What? Disciple Yuan? This is the first time I've heard of this disciple. Is he new? A new disciple defeated that mad tiger? He must be a genius. I heard he used some kind of eye technique that rendered mad tiger spineless with a single gaze. I wouldn't mess with this guy even if I had 10 lives. I was there to witness his eye technique. Shit. I'm still getting chills down my spine just thinking about it, and it felt like I was looking at a powerful beast. Yuan's name spread across the outer court like wildfire, and within a single day, almost every disciple in the outer court had heard about his fight against Wu Laohu, becoming famous. Meanwhile, in the dispute hall, Elder Cheng and Wu Laohu stood beside each other while they faced Elder Dai with nervous looks on their faces. Elder Cheng, did you really think I didn't know about your actions? Not just today, I have known about it since you rigged your first match. Elder Dai said in a calm voice, dumbfounding Elder Cheng. Does this mean she doesn't intend on punishing me? He wondered inwardly with a hopeful feeling. Do you know why I didn't even bother to punish you? Elder Dai then asked him. This content is taken from li/nov/elp/ub/com. No, I do not, Senior Elder. Elder Cheng quickly shook his head. Because the cultivation world is never fair. Things like this happen on a daily basis throughout the world, not just the cultivation world, and I really couldn't care less about it since it doesn't really affect the sect. Elder Dai said, and she continued, however, like most situations in the cultivation world, it's not about whether you're caught or not. Elder Dai narrowed her eyes and said in a cold voice, it's about who you're doing it to. If you treated a nobody unfairly, who would care? Nobody would care even if the entire world knew. However, if you treated someone from the legacy family like how you treated Disciple Yuan today, what do you think would happen once word gets out? Of course, I doubt anybody would be stupid enough to offend someone from the legacy family, but hypothetically, if you'd done that, everybody would call you out for it. Now returning back to the topic at hand. The main reason I will be punishing you two for your actions today is not because you were being unfair, it's simply because you'd picked the wrong person to offend. Elder Dai spoke in a calm manner. Elder Cheng, you are no longer a disciple of the Dragon Essence Temple as of this moment. As for Wu Laohu, you'll be punished with 4 years of confinement. If you have a problem with my decision, you may speak with the sect master. However, I highly advise you to just accept my punishment and not speak with the sect master, who will definitely make your lives much more miserable. Chapter 244, A Powerful Slap. Why you're going to kick me out of the sect? Elder Cheng stood there with disbelief on his face. I have served this sect for over 50 years. How can you throw me away like trash for something like this? If it's as you'd said, that my actions don't affect the sect that much, why must you give me such a severe punishment, Senior Elder Dai? Just who is that outer court disciple? I don't really have anything else to say. If you want to challenge my decision, go ahead and speak with the sect master. However, don't say I didn't warn you. Elder Dai said in a casual manner before waving her hands. You may leave now. Make sure you hand over your disciple identification token before you leave. Elder Dai said. I will speak with the sect master. Even though I am wrong for what I did, I don't deserve such a punishment. Elder Cheng slammed his disciple identification token on the desk before walking out. What about you, Disciple Wu Laohu? Do you also want to challenge my decision? Elder Dai turned to look at him. However, Wu Laohu shook his head and said, I accept my punishment. No, please punish me. After the horror Head experienced today and the embarrassment Head shown, Wu Laohu would rather stay holed up in confinement for the next couple of years, hoping that the disciples would forget him by the time he re-emerges, especially Yuan, who he prays to never run into again for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Elder Cheng left the dispute hall to look for the sect master. Chem? The sect master? He should be at the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower right now with the other sect masters. A fellow sect elder told Elder Cheng after being asked about Long Yijuan. For more, visit li/jht/n/ovalpub. I see. Thank you. While Elder Cheng proceeded to make his way towards the tower, the disciples at the tower began whispering to each other after hearing about the fight between Wu Laohu and Yuan. What? Wu Laohu was defeated by a new disciple? As if I believe that. It's true. Look at the power ranking if you don't believe me. A disciple by the name of Yuan had taken his spot and pushed everyone else down a place. What? Once a small commotion occurred in the place, the news eventually reached the ears of Long Yijuan and the others. What? Disciple Yuan fought a match against Disciple Wu Laohu? How come I'm not aware of this until after the fight ended? Long Yijuan immediately frowned. Elder Xian and the other high-ranking elders such as Elder Bai and Elder Xen turned to look at Long Yijuan, as they were also clueless. Wu Laohu? Isn't that the rumored mad tiger who climbed to 3rd place after spending only 2 years in the sect? A new disciple defeated someone like him? This is interesting. New novel chapters are published on lightnov/lpub. The other sect masters there also had their interest piqued when they heard this news. Sect Master Long, do you know this disciple Yuan who defeated the mad tiger? One of them even decided to ask him. No. I have no idea. Long Yijuan shook his head. If even the sect master doesn't know of such a talented disciple, he must be fairly new to the sect. Ah. How lucky for the Dragon Essence Temple. Looks like you have picked up another rough gem. The guest there laughed out loud. You have no idea. Elder Xian smiled inwardly at their statement. Sometime later, Elder Qing arrived at the place and approached the Long Yijuan with a sweaty face. A sect master. This disciple would like to have a word with you. Elder Qing bowed to Long Yijuan in a respectful manner. Long Yijuan raised his eyebrows at Elder Qing's unexpected approach. Follow current novels on li/gnov/lpub. Com Elder Qing from the dispute hall, correct? What's the matter? Why are you sweating so much? Long Yijuan asked him with raised eyebrows. To this is, Elder Cheng's legs trembled, feeling incredibly nervous at this moment, almost like there was someone suffocating him. This disciple seeks justice. Elder Qing managed to speak his mind by shouting out loud, even crying afterward. This shocked the people there. What happened? Why does Elder Qing look like a child running to his parents after being bullied? Seeing this, Long Yijuan turned to look at the other sect masters and said, Please excuse me for a moment. Come with me. He then said to Elder Qing before leaving the crowd to go somewhere more private. What happened? Long Yijuan asked him. This, new novel chapters are published on /lightnovelp/ub. Elder Qing proceeded to explain how Head wronged by forcing a match between two disciples and how Elder Dai wanted to punish him by throwing him out of the sect without mentioning Wu Laohu or Yuan's name. What? Elder Dai said that? Long Yijuan couldn't help but become surprised after listening to Elder Qing. Even if Elder Qing had done exactly what Head said, kicking him out of the sect for something like this was truly an overkill, especially if Head worked at the sect for so many years. However, just as Long Yijuan was prepared to show Elder Qing some pity by lowering his sentence, he suddenly recalled what the others were talking about not long ago, which immediately caused him to frown. And in a low but cold voice Long Yijuan spoke, Elder Qing. Let me ask you something. What is the name of the disciple that you'd forced to fight in a match? The name? I think his name was Yuan. Before Elder Qing could even finish his sentence, Long Yijuan roared with veins all over his forehead. You fucking fool. The most up-to-date novels are published on li/jgt/n/ovalpub. A powerful slap suddenly flew across Elder Cheng's face, sending him flying high into the air and towards the crowd at the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower, greatly shocking them. What the heck? One of the sect masters there fell from his seat in a startled manner before staring at Elder Cheng's unconscious body that had suddenly fallen from the sky and landed in front of him like a corpse. Chapter 245 Fake It Till You Make It? Elder Cheng's unconscious body falling from the sky had shocked everybody at the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower, immediately causing a scene there. Elder Qing. What happened to you? Elder Xian quickly went to check his pulses just to make sure he wasn't actually dead. After confirming that Elder Qing was alive, Elder Xian released a sigh of relief. What happened? Where's Sect Master Long? The other sect masters there wondered since Elder Qing was seen following Long Yijuan. And as though their words had summoned the demon, Long Yijuan could be seen approaching them from a distance, but there was something different about him compared to when he left. When the sect masters and the other disciples there saw the rage on Long Yijuan's face, they thought his parents had been murdered or something, causing their body to tremble uncontrollably. Sect Master. What's the matter? Why are you so angry? Elder Xian quickly approached Long Yijuan. Get this. Long Yijuan quickly explained the situation to Elder Xian without letting the others hear it. Elder Qing did what? The source of this content is /light/n/ovalpub. Elder Xian shook his head in regret, and all of the pity and worry he had for Elder Qing disappeared in less than a second after learning what Elder Qing had done to Yuan. Elder Bai. Long Yijuan suddenly called for Bai Ling, Disciplinary Hall's leader. Yes. Elder Bai appeared beside him immediately. Toss Elder Qing into the confinement chamber until we're done here. I'll deal with him later. Long Yijuan spoke in a demanding tone. Yes, Sect Master. Elder Bai did not question Long Yijuan and immediately went to pick up Elder Qing before carrying him away, and the people there watched with gawking expressions on their faces. I apologize for the slight disturbance, fellow guests and disciples. Please act as though nothing had happened just now. Long Yijuan said to the people there with a smile on his face before walking back to his seat like nothing really happened just now, shocking the people even more. What the heck just happened? Who was that sect elder and what did he do to piss sect master Long so much? Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub, / Comas. If I could forget such a scene just because you told me to, I probably won't ever forget the look on sect master Long's face for the rest of my life. Although the people there were extremely curious about the situation that had just occurred, nobody there actually dared to bring the topic up after seeing Long Yijin's fearsome demeanor just now, not even the sect masters from the other sections. On the other hand, Long Yijuan cursed inwardly, fuck. Why are there so many people trying to offend Disciple Yuan? It's almost like they're purposefully trying to chase him out of the sect with their scandalous behaviors. If I have to kick out every sect elder to keep Disciple Yuan safe until the Mystic Realm, I'll freaking do it. Sect Master, while what Elder Cheng did was wrong, you should also calm down. Elder Xian suddenly said to him. Don't forget that it's Disciple Yuan's desire to experience sect life as a normal disciple, and for normal disciples they experience these kinds of unfairness every day. Long Yijuan became somewhat speechless after hearing Elder Xian's words. How could he have overlooked such a thing? If they keep on protecting Yuan from these unfair situations, he will never experience life as an ordinary outer court disciple, nor will he understand their struggles. Therefore, unless it threatened Yuan's life, they shouldn't interfere with his life and let him deal with the problems by himself. Of course, once Yuan deals with the situation, they'll punish the offenders afterward. Thank you for the reminder, Elder Xian. I nearly robbed him of what made him want to join the Dragon Essence Temple in the first place. Experience? Long Yijuan sighed. At this moment, the 89th floor from the tower emitted a golden light, signaling that whoever was challenging the tower had managed to reach the 90th floor. Visit Light Novel Pub. Com for a better experience, haha. Look at this, Sect Master Long, we're only at our second challenger and he's already managed to climb all the way to the 90th floor. At this rate, someone will defeat all 100 floors and we'll still have half of our disciples left. One of the guest sect masters laughed out loud. The 90th floor, huh? Not bad for someone who's supposed to be your sect's best disciple. Long Yijuan responded in a casual manner, almost like he wasn't worried even in the slightest. Act tough all you want now. I can't wait to see the desperation on your face when you have to hand over the dragon-slaying saber. Long Yijuan smirked at such remarks and said, yes, I also cannot wait. Meanwhile, after defeating Wu Laohu, Yuan returned to his room and laid on his bed, and he proceeded to stare at the empty ceiling with a dazed look on his face. It was much harder than I'd expected, acting like I did during the match, Yuan sighed out loud. Brother Yuan, what you did today is simply acting like a real cultivator. Xiaohua said to him. A real cultivator? What's the difference? A real cultivator won't let anything block their path. They will walk straight no matter what stands in their way. If a mountain blocks your path, you destroy that mountain. If an ocean blocks your path, you split that ocean. If another cultivator blocks your path, you trample on that cultivator. That's how the most successful and powerful cultivators in this world behave, hence why they're called real cultivators. Xiaohua explained to him. Follow current novels on li/jht/novel/ub. That's very aggressive and unreasonable. I don't know if I want to become someone like that. Yuan sighed. Don't worry, brother Yuan. You can become a true cultivator even without being like that. As long as you know when and how to act like a true cultivator, you'll be fine. If I recall correctly, there's this saying, fake it till you make it. You simply need to fake that character and hope people believe it. Hearing Xiaohua's words, Yuan turned silent to ponder again. Chapter 246 Picking Up Yu Rou. I think I understand what I should do. Thank you, Xiaohua. You're always helping me. If only there's something I can do for you. Yuan said. Xiaohua is satisfied with just being around brother Yuan. Xiaohua quickly responded. Sometime later, Yuan said, I'll see you later, Xiaohua. Goodbye, brother Yuan. Yuan logged off the game shortly later. Once Yuan logged off, he could immediately feel two presence around him. Sorry for making you wait, Yu Rou, Yuan said to her. Don't worry about it. I just got here. Yu Rou responded. By the way, I spoke with Feng Yu Rou. I told her about your situation, and she's currently heading to Phoenix City to pick you up. She also told you to wait for her at the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. Wait, today? Yu Rou asked. The most up-to-date novels are published on li/novelpub. Yes. Okay. Fortunately, I brought my console with me so I can enter the game even though I am here. Yu Rou said. Yuan then continued, as for Meixiu, after helping Yu Rou meet with Xia Jingyi, she will come to the western continent to help you next, but you need to let her know your location so that she knows where to go. I understand you, young master, Meixiu said. Sometime later, Yu Rou went into the third bedroom to set up her console whilst Meixiu went into her own room, both of them entering once they were prepared. While Yu Rou went to meet Feng Yuxiang and Meixiu wandered around to find her location, Yuan remained in the real world to cultivate. Currently, his priority was to raise his cultivation as fast as possible so that his body could recover faster, and he still had a few days until the inner court disciple examination. Meanwhile, after entering the game, Yu Rou began making her way towards the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. Many minutes later, Yu Rou arrived at the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, and she proceeded to stand outside the street to wait for Feng Yuxiang. When the guards saw this, they tilted their heads. Normally, one can't loiter around the Golden Phoenix Bazaar even if they are outside the street. However, since Yu Rou was quite the eye candy, they didn't want to drive her away and allowed her to stay there so they could look at her beauty. For more, visit lightnovel.pub.com. Looks like she's waiting for somebody. Do you think it's her boyfriend? One of the two guards there asked. If it is, then that man is a damn fool, said the other guard, and he continued, if she was my girl, I wouldn't make her wait so long. In fact, I'd even be here before sunrise. Do you want to go speak with her? Maybe you'll get lucky. I don't know, man. You think I should? I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't. Go get her. The guard nodded, and just as he prepared to approach Yu Rou, a burst of flames appeared in the sky before descending directly outside the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, shocking the guards and everybody there. That's Madame Feng. Madame Feng is back. The guards were greatly shocked by her appearance, as Feng Yuxiang's whereabouts had been unknown for a while now. Many people could be seen running out of their stores in the Golden Phoenix Bazaar when they noticed Feng Yuxiang's aura, and they quickly approached Yu Rou and Feng Yuxiang. Follow current novels on lightnovel.pub.com. Where have you been, Madame Feng? The city's lord has been worried sick ever since you disappeared. Madame Feng. Are you finally back at the Golden Phoenix Bazaar? I've missed you and your shop, Madame Feng. Please come back to us. The Golden Phoenix Bazaar is not the same without your presence. It feels empty. Feng Yuxiang looked at the people swarming them with a nonchalant expression on her face, and she spoke a moment later, I am busy with other things, so no, I won't be returning. What? What are you busy with, Madame Feng? Perhaps we can help you. Yeah. We'll do everything in our power to help you accomplish your needs. Hearing their words, Feng Yuxiang coldly snorted and said, none of you can help me. Just forget about it. I won't return to the Golden Bazaar Phoenix no matter what you say. She then turned to look at Yu Rou and asked her, are you ready to leave? Yes. The source of this content is lig/novelpub.com. Feng Yuxiang then wrapped her arm around Yu Rou's waist before soaring towards the heavens. Madame Feng. Please come back to us. Despite the desperate shouting from below, Feng Yuxiang ignored it and asked Yu Rou, Red Pearl City, right? If we head to the teleportation device 3 cities away, we arrive at the destination in less than a day. Thank you, Senior Feng. Yu Rou said to her. You can call me by my nickname just like the young master. Feng Yuxiang said to her as she began flying away from Phoenix City. While Feng Yuxiang and Yu Rou made their way towards Red Pearl City, Meixiu wandered around the area until she could see city walls in the distance. Ding. You have discovered Tang City? Tang City, ha! Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. However, since Meixiu was not really interested in cultivation online, she logged off after learning the name of her location. Yuan, are you awake? Meixiu asked him after entering his room. Yes, what's the matter? Yuan stopped cultivating and responded. I am in a place called Tang City. I see. They'll let Feng know once she's finished helping Yu Rou. I understand. In the meantime, can you check my bank account to see how much money is left in there? The information is... After giving Meixiu his personal bank account information, Meixiu used her phone to look at his bank balance. A few moments later she spoke in a low voice, Yuan, there's no money in this bank account. The balance is literally zero. Visit li/gitnov/lpub.com for the best novel reading experience. It. Yuan exclaimed in a shocked voice. Where did his money go? He doesn't recall spending any of it either. Chapter 247. A year ago. I don't have any money in my bank account? How's that possible? I haven't touched it since I got it. Yuan pondered for a moment before realizing something. However, before he could even say anything, Meixiu spoke. The statement says the money, all $242,690, had been transferred to another bank account last year. 200,000? I guess I had more than just a couple of thousand inside. As for where the money went, I can only imagine that it was my parents who took them. Yuan sighed. And he continued, although I don't know how much I actually earned during my professional days, they really don't intend on leaving anything for me even though I earned it, huh? And if they'd taken the money a year ago, that means they were already prepared to disown me at that time. Meixiu was silent as she listened to Yuan's grumbling. If she recalls correctly, not even mentioning the money Yuan had won from major competitions, his parents would earn millions of dollars every single time Yuan went on the stage to perform in front of an audience. In fact, the larger performances easily earned them tens of millions of dollars. It is safe to assume that Yuan was the Yu family's golden goose, hence why his parents waited so long before officially abandoning him. Furthermore, Yuan would perform almost every other day, and if he was not performing for an audience, he would be participating in competitions, and he did this for many years. One can safely assume that Yuan had earned the Yu family hundreds of millions of dollars if not billions when he was playing for them. However, despite everything he's done and given them, the Yu family discarded him when they deemed him useless, and even worse, they were shameless enough to take what little he had left, leaving him with literally nothing. Perhaps this is why they even adopted me in the first place, because they can dispose of me whenever they feel like it since I'm not their real son. Yuan sighed inwardly. Visit light.no/vel/p/ub.com for the best novel reading experience. Anyway, since my parents have access to that account, I cannot use it anymore. I will need a new bank account. But how do I open one? Yuan asked a moment later. We can ask the young lady once she's done with the game, Meixiu suggested. Okay. Thus, Yuan returned to cultivating whilst Meixiu went to clean the house even though it was already pretty clean. Many hours later, Yu Rou finally arrived at Red Pearl City with Feng Yuxiang. Thank you, Feng. Yu Rou said to her as they landed in front of the city entrance, shocking the pedestrians and guards there. Don't even mention it. Feng Yuxiang said, and she continued, anyway, I will return to the young master's side now. But before I leave. Feng Yuxiang reached into her spatial ring and retrieved a small red pouch before handing it to Yu Rou. Take this. If you're ever in danger, just use the life-saving treasures inside. This content is taken from light//novel/pub/com. You don't have to. Yu Rou hesitated to accept such precious treasures for free. It's okay. The young master cares for you very much, and he will be sad if anything happens to you. After a moment of silence, Yu Rou reluctantly accepted the treasures. Thank you, Feng. I'll definitely repay you in the future. Feng Yuxiang nodded before flying away, making her way back to the Dragon Essence Temple. Young master's sister. She doesn't share the same bloodline as the young master. Feng Yuxiang thought to herself as she soared in the sky. After spending a few hours with Yu Rou, Feng Yuxiang couldn't help but probe Yu Rou's body with her spiritual energy, and to her surprise, she noticed that Yu Rou and Yuan belonged to a different bloodline. Even without tasting Yu Rou's blood, as a phoenix and a divine beast, she has the ability to examine one's bloodline just by being in close contact with them, and while she was curious about their real relationship, Feng Yuxiang didn't dare to probe too deeply into their business. No wonder why the young master is extremely talented whilst his sister is somewhat lacking. So they weren't related in the first place. Feng Yuxiang thought to herself. While Yuan's presence radiated with overwhelming talents, Yu Rou, on the other hand, was only above average compared to the cultivators of this world. At least that's how she appeared in Feng Yuxiang's eyes, which didn't make sense at first. But if they were not real siblings, that explained their disparity. Visit lightnov/pub.com for a better experience. After arriving at Red Pearl City, Yu Rou logged off the game to let Xia Jingyi know. Jingyi? I have arrived at Red Pearl City. Yu Rou said to her over the phone. What? Already? That's super quick. How did you do it? Xia Jingyi's surprised voice resounded shortly later. Let's just say I had a little assistance from a friend, Yu Rou chuckled. Anyways, it's already late and we have school tomorrow, so let's play next weekend. Okay, Xia Jingyi quickly said. After hanging up the phone, Yu Rou went to knock on Yuan's door. Brother Tian, I have arrived at my destination, and Feng is returning to your side now, she said to him. That's good, Yuan said. Visit /li//novel pub. Com for the best novel reading experience. I'm going to prepare your dinner now. Yu Rou said. Wait for a second, Yu Rou. Before you go, I have something to tell you. What's the matter? Yu Rou asked. Well, it's about my bank account. It's completely empty. Yuan said in a sighing voice. What? Yu Rou stared at him with wide eyes. Yuan then explained the situation to her. After learning the situation, Yu Rou was greatly shocked, even disgusted by her parents' actions. How could they do something like this, much less to their own son? That's your money. Something you earned. They have no right to take it from you. And to think they did it last year. Completely shameless and disgusting. Yu Rou exclaimed, immediately feeling enraged. Chapter 248 Real World Trading? It's okay, Yu Rou. Fortunately for us, your friend allowed me to stay here for free. Yuan said a moment later. Even if that's the case, their actions are inexcusable. It's like they're doing everything they can to ruin your life. How can they do that to their own children? That's despicable. Yu Rou sighed. Because I'm not really their child. Yuan sighed, feeling a strong urge to reveal everything to Yu Rou at this moment, but had managed to resist such urges at the end. Anyways, what should we do now? That bank account is no longer safe, so I will need to put my money somewhere else. Yuan asked her a moment later. I can open up a new account for you tomorrow, brother. But until you have enough money, I will pay for your expenses, Yu Rou said. Are you sure? Of course. How else are you going to pay for your food and other necessities? Although I'm not rich, I have more than enough to help you, Yu Rou said. And she continued, but you should really sell your in-game stuff as soon as possible, brother, as the value for golden has been decreasing lately since people are growing stronger, allowing them to grind gold at a faster rate, not to mention the number of new players joining the game every day. It's not really bad right now since the game is still fairly new and the rich people are buying as much gold as they can to upgrade their avatars, but every dollar counts, especially when the family is no longer supporting you. How much are gold coins worth anyway? Yuan suddenly asked. Let me check real quick. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovel/p/ub. Yu Rou proceeded to check on her phone. According to the most popular trading website right now, one gold is worth about $7, so it dropped a few bucks since the wealth leaderboards came out. $7 for a single gold coin? That's very profitable, no? Yuan said in a surprised voice. If he has 1 million gold coins, that's about $7 million in the real world. If you think about it, it's not easy to earn money in, and it usually takes on average 3 to 4 hours for the average player to earn a single gold coin. Of course, if you're a powerful cultivator who can fight high-level monsters, you can make much more by selling their materials and monster cores, but not many people are at that level. Even the top players just recently entered Spirit Warrior despite spending tens of millions of real-life money for gold and treasures to boost their cultivations. Speaking of cultivation, what level are you at right now? Yu Rou suddenly asked. Me? The peak of Spirit Warrior, about to enter Spirit Master. Yuan casually responded. Peak Spirit Warrior? Yu Rou's jaw dropped after hearing his words. Yuan had managed to surpass the top players by almost an entire realm without spending a single penny? That's simply too crazy. Too overwhelming. The difference was too vast. Even if the top players spend hundreds of millions, they probably won't be able to reach Yuan's level. Updated from lightnovelpus/b. If the world knew of Brother Tian's cultivation, they'd probably go crazy, even more than currently. Yu Rou thought to herself. Since you're this powerful, it shouldn't be a problem for you to earn gold in cultivation online. However, there is something even more precious than gold, and that is raw materials and treasures. Yu Rou then said. And she continued, let's say you have 1 million gold and a treasure worth 1 million gold. If you sold the gold coins, you'll only get 7 million. However, if you sell the treasure, people will definitely pay more, at least 30% more. After all, treasures are more unique than gold, so it's always better to sell resources and treasures. How much would a divine grade treasure sell for? Yuan suddenly asked. Divine grade? Do you intend on selling a treasure at that grade? Yu Rou looked at him with a surprised expression. Yes. I obtained this divine grade zither after winning the competition, but I don't really need it as I already have another zither. Yuan said. A divine grade instrument. The families with a music background will go crazy for that. But I'm not sure about the price since nobody has sold anything even close to this grade before. What's the most expensive item that has been sold thus far? Xiao Hua sold a heaven grade with peak quality to an auction house for over 30 million gold coins before. Yuan said. 30 million gold coins? That must be when you unlocked the wealth leaderboards. If you'd sold that in the market, you'd have earned at least $300 million. Yu Rou exclaimed. New novel chapters are published on /light/novelpub.com. Well yeah, but I don't really consider that my money since it was Xiao Hua's treasure that was sold, Yuan said. If you sell the divine grade zither, you can easily get $500 million, brother Tian. That's more than enough to support yourself for many years. Are you going to sell it? Yu Rou asked him. Yes, I plan on selling it. But how do I go about selling something so precious? Indeed, you cannot sell something that precious in an ordinary market. However, I know just the place for expensive treasures, the auction house. Yu Rou said. You can place the zither in an online auction house with a minimum starting price and the highest bidder gets to buy it. How will the trade work? Do I give them the treasure before or after they pay? Either way, this doesn't seem safe. Yuan said. After all, what if the buyer just logs off the game after receiving the item without paying? How can you chase the scammer, much less get your items back? Wait for them to log back on and kill them? Don't worry, brother. Although it's not perfect, there's a system in place for that. Yu Rou said, and she proceeded to explain to him about the system in more detail. Chapter 249 Officially Disowned. Let me explain to you how the online auction house works. Yu Rou said, and she proceeded to explain. First, a seller will list the item in the auction house, and if the item exceeds a certain price threshold, a staff member from the website must verify the item before the treasure is allowed to be auctioned. Once the treasure is verified in-game by a staff member and the auction begins, verified accounts will be allowed to bid on the item. At the end of the auction, the player with the highest bid will deposit the money on the website, which cannot be touched until the transaction is completed or cancelled. Once the staff member confirms the money is there, the seller will meet a staff member in-game and hand the treasure to the staff member. After the website confirms that the treasure is indeed the real thing, they will proceed to transfer the money to the seller's bank account before handing the treasure to the buyer, completing the transaction. I know there are some obvious flaws with this system, such as the staff member working together with others to scam the seller or vice versa, but that hasn't happened yet, and the website itself is very popular and reliable with millions of dollars in transaction every day, so I doubt they would risk their reputation over a treasure. In fact, even the government is watching them closely, so they won't do anything stupid. I see. Then let's do that. Yuan said. Okay. They'll create an anonymous account for you when I get home later. Yu Rou said. Thank you. The source of this content is lightno/vel/pub/com. Sometime later, Yu Rou went to cook dinner whilst Meixiu assisted her. After feeding Yuan, Yu Rou went back home to create an account for Yuan. Let's see. Register a new account, anonymous, seller, current location, Eastern continent, complete. After spending a few minutes on the website, Yu Rou created an anonymous account for Yuan, so that people won't see his player name when he sells things in the auction house. Of course, it would be better for one to show their name, especially if they're a top player, as that would give them more credibility. Good. Now I just need to wait until Meixiu meets with brother Tian so that we can begin earning some money. Yu Rou chuckled. Follow current novels on lighten/oval/pub. See/om. If Yuan seriously wanted to earn money through real-world trading, he could easily become one of the richest players in this world with the stuff he currently has. However, knowing her brother, he probably doesn't care much about fame or wealth. Just as Yu Rou prepared to enter her bed to sleep, her phone began ringing. A frown appeared on Yu Rou's face when she saw the caller, but she picked it up regardless. Hello, mother. I'm tired of waiting. What's his decision? Tang Li spoke in a cold voice. Brother. I tried to convince him, but he refuses to play the instruments again. Yu Rou responded in a nervous voice. Damn. That fucking useless piece of shit. How dare he defy us after all that we've done for him? If it weren't for us, he would have remained as a nobody. If it weren't for us, he wouldn't have survived this long in his condition. Good. If this is his decision, then he can get the hell out of my family. I doubt he'll even survive a week in that condition without our support. Hearing her mother's enraged voice and insults towards Yuan, Yu Rou's body trembled in anger, and she tightly gritted her teeth, resisting her urges to curse Tang Li out loud. Follow current novels on lightno/velp/ub/com. Furthermore, I forbid you from meeting him from now on. He's officially disowned. Therefore he's no different than a stranger now. Tang Li suddenly said. What? That's unreasonable, mother? Yu Rou immediately said in a panicked voice, her voice even cracking a bit from shock. Shut up. As long as you're part of this family, you will listen to us. Unless you want to follow in your brother's footsteps and leave the family, don't you dare talk back to your parents. Do you understand me? Yu Rou wanted to rebel at that moment and follow Yuan's decision by leaving the family. However, she ultimately resisted her impulses. After all, even if she cannot see Yuan anymore, she can still help him from the shadows. However, if she left the family, she will no longer be able to help Yuan in case of emergencies. Furthermore, she's still a minor who has to attend school. It was unrealistic and irresponsible for someone like her to suddenly leave the family. Well, I don't think I heard your answer, Yu Rou. Tang Li's voice resounded again. I understand, mother. I will no longer see brother Tian. Yu Rou responded in a pained voice, as she never thought that she would one day utter such words. I don't want to hear that useless thing's name anymore either. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelpub/c/om. Sometime later, Tang Li closed the connection. After hanging up, Yu Rou tossed her phone on the bed before burying her face in the pillow and bawling her eyes out until she cried herself to sleep a few hours later, soaking the pillow with her tears. Early in the morning, Yu Rou woke up before sunrise as usual. Since she has been waking up at the same time almost every day for the past few years to take care of Yuan, her body would instinctively wake up. However, after remembering that Yuan was no longer part of the family, Yu Rou closed her eyes and went back to sleep, but to nobody's surprise, she was unable to go back to sleep. I'm sorry, brother, for being so powerless, she mumbled in a dispirited voice. Once it was time for school, despite having no motivation or energy to leave the bed, Yu Rou struggled with herself until she was in the car. Sometime later, Yu Rou went to pick up Meixiu at the apartment. Did something happen, young lady? Your eyes are red and you look exhausted. Did you not sleep last night? Meixiu asked her in a worried tone after seeing her messy appearance. New novel chapters are published on lig/novelpub/com. I'll explain everything later. Yu Rou sighed. Chapter 250 Desperation and Passion. After struggling to pay attention and stay awake in her classes, Yu Rou managed to endure until lunchtime. Sister Rou, did something happen to you? I noticed that you were dozing off during class. This is unprecedented. Xia Jingyi asked her after they sat down for lunch. It's a long story. Yu Rou sighed. If you don't want to say it, no, I'll tell you since you're somewhat related now. Yu Rou said, and she proceeded to explain to them what had happened yesterday and how her mother forbade her from seeing Yuan. Cough, cough. What? Xia Jingyi almost choked on her drink after listening to Yu Rou, and she slammed the desk in anger. How can she do that to you and your brother, her own children? I have never seen such despicable people before. I'm sorry for yelling at your parents, Sister Rou, but I just can't remain calm after hearing what they did, Xia Jingyi said. Don't worry about it, Xia Jingyi. I also feel that what my parents did is unforgivable. However, there's nothing I can do and it's not like I could just leave the family. If I was even half as talented as brother Tian, perhaps I would have some saying in the family, but alas, that's not the case. Yu Rou sighed. While it's true that Yuan could support both of them if he begins real-world trading, there are things in this world that cannot be solved even with money. Furthermore, she doesn't intend on letting Yuan take care of her forever. If anything, it should be the other way around, she should be taking care of him. However, she can't do that if she leaves the family, and the biggest problem is that she's still a minor whilst Yuan is considered an adult. This content is taken from /lightnov//lpub. C/om. What are you going to do now, Sister Rou? Xia Jingyi asked her a moment later. I honestly don't know, but we can only continue with our plans and see how it goes. If things don't work out, we will think of something else. Yu Rou said. If you need anything, just let me know, Sister Rou. I'll do my best to support you and your brother. Xia Jingyi said. Thank you, Jingyi. Yu Rou said to her with a sweet smile. What should I do, young lady? If the masters find out that I'm helping the young master, there's a good chance they'll also force me to stop. Meixiu suddenly said. You'll continue taking care of brother Tian since there's nobody else we can trust right now. I'll try my best to keep your business a secret. If my parents find out, once again we'll think of something. Yu Rou said to her. I understand, young lady. Meixiu nodded. Meanwhile, Yuan continued to cultivate in his room, reaching 3rd-level Spirit Warrior an hour before Meixiu returned. Young master. Yuan, I have something news regarding the young lady. Meixiu said in a solemn voice. Updated from light/no/velpu/b. Kamechim? Did something happen to Yu Rou? Yuan asked in a worried voice. Well, after taking a deep breath, Meixiu explained to him the situation, how he's officially disowned and kicked out of the Yu family and how they forbade Yu Rou from seeing him anymore. Yu Rou can't see me anymore? Yuan mumbled in a dazed voice. After taking longer than necessary to understand the meaning behind such words, mostly because he was shocked, Yuan gritted his teeth in anger. I don't care if they take away all of my possessions and money. I don't even care if they kick me out of the family. However, to think they'd stoop as low as this. They're clearly using Yu Rou to purposefully piss me off. Yuan subconsciously tightened his hands to make a fist at this moment despite not feeling them, and his fingers trembled a bit, moving more than usual. Due to her attentiveness, Meixiu did not miss this slight movement and nearly cried out loud of shock after seeing it. Visit lightnovelpub/c/om for the best novel reading experience. I wasn't imagining things just now, right? Yuan, his fingers, it moved. Meixiu cried inwardly, unsure how much of what she just witnessed was real or just her imagination. However, after rubbing her eyes and looking again, she couldn't see Yuan's fingers moving anymore. Perhaps it really was just my imagination? She wondered. I swear, if they made Yu Rou cry just to get back at me. Yuan said, experiencing an indescribable feeling of rage in his heart that felt similar to heartburn. Dup, dup, dup. Yuan could feel his heart racing, unaware of the flame in his heart that was expanding larger and fiercer. Feeling a subtle but suffocating atmosphere suddenly appear in the room, Meixiu spoke in a nervous voice. I'm going to prepare dinner now. And she quickly escaped the room, immediately feeling better after leaving Yuan's room. What was the feeling just now? Meixiu wondered to herself as she wiped the cold sweats off her forehead. This content is taken from light//nov/lpub. C/OM. Meanwhile, Yuan tried his best to calm down, but alas, it was much more difficult than had expected. I thought only the cultivation world would have such unreasonable people, but it appears that such people exist in this world as well, and they even used to be my own parents. Yuan sighed inwardly after realizing this fact. Unfortunately, unlike Cultivation Online where he has many powerful supporters, he could only rely on Yu Rou and a few other people in this world. Furthermore, his movements are extremely limited, making it impossible for him to do anything about this situation. If only I could move. If only I am not so useless in this world. Yuan gritted his teeth in frustration. The only thing I can do right now is to improve my cultivation. With this thought in mind, Yuan began cultivating again despite the unpleasant feeling in his heart that is desperation mixed with passion. A few moments later, a gentle breeze appeared in the room as Yuan's cultivation speed suddenly increased even more, but alas, he was too focused to notice this change. Chapter 251 Soul Techniques. After cooking dinner, Meixiu went back into Yuan's room to feed him. However, she was a little bit nervous to enter his room at first, fearing that uncomfortable atmosphere that still lingered in her body. Yuan stopped cultivating the moment he noticed Meixiu standing in front of his room. Sometime later, Meixiu began feeding Yuan 3 bowls of soup. After Yuan gobbled down all 3 bowls of soup with ease, Meixiu gently wiped his lips with a wet towel. "Allow me to wipe your body now," said Meixiu in a somewhat shaky voice. "Okay." Meixiu proceeded to unbutton Yuan's customized pajamas and began wiping his body down with a warm wet towel. His body. It's even more refined and muscular than last time. Just how does his body work? Meixiu wondered to herself as she wiped every nook and cranny of his body before moving to the lower areas. Meixiu swallowed nervously as she carefully wiped his lower body, trying her best to avoid another accident like last time. A few minutes later, Meixiu buttoned his clothes back up before leaving the room to clean up. New novel chapters are published on //l/itno/velpub. Meanwhile, Yuan returned to cultivating. After cleaning the dishes and taking a shower, Meixiu visited Yuan one more time before bed to see if he needed anything. "Good night, Meixiu." "Good night?" Once Meixiu went to sleep, Yuan began absorbing the spiritual energy in the area. Is it because we're living in a higher place that there's more spiritual energy here? Yuan wondered to himself as he realized that compared to his old home, the spiritual energy in this place was more abundant. 1 hour. 2 hours. 3 hours. Time passed in a flashing speed as Yuan deeply indulged himself in his cultivation, achieving another breakthrough and reaching 4th level Spirit Warrior. At this rate I'll catch up to my cultivation in, Yuan thought to himself. This content is taken from /light novel pub. Wait a second, Yuan suddenly came to a realization. If I could use divine sense when I am only a Spirit Warrior in, perhaps I'll also be able to divine sense in this world with my current cultivation? Yuan could feel his heartbeats quickening immediately after this thought. What if he can use divine sense to see again? This way, even if he cannot move, he can at least see his surroundings. With this thought in mind, Yuan immediately began trying to use divine sense. Let's see. Divine sense. Yuan tried to replicate the feeling he gets when he uses divine sense in, but after trying for a couple of minutes without any results, Yuan gave up for the moment. Why can't I use divine sense? Do I have to reach Spirit Master before I can use divine sense like Xiaohua once said? Yuan wondered to himself. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel Pub. C///O, and just like how he couldn't immediately break through to Spirit Warrior from Spirit Apprentice without enlightenment like he had in the game, perhaps he can't use divine sense until he's a Spirit Master either. Or maybe I'm just not used to divine sense enough to use it in the real world. I should practice in cultivation online after breakfast and try again later. Meixiu woke up early in the morning to prepare breakfast. After feeding Yuan, she went to school with Yu Rou whilst Yuan went into cultivation online to practice his divine sense. Xiaohua, are there any tricks to learning divine sense? Yuan decided to ask the expert before doing anything. Unfortunately, just like enlightenment, divine sense is something one naturally learns when they reach Spirit Master. Of course, there are geniuses who learn divine sense before that like Brother Yuan. These people are very rare. Xiaohua said to him. I see. Then is there any way to practice divine sense to make it stronger? He then asked. As long as you continue using it, you'll naturally improve. Though there are methods to training one's divine sense, and that is to cultivate soul techniques. Soul techniques? How are they any different compared to normal cultivation techniques? As the name suggests, soul technique specifically trains one's spirit and soul. However, these techniques are very rare, and even the lowest rank soul techniques can be worth more than heaven rank cultivation techniques. New novel chapters are published on Lighten/Oval Pub / C/OM. What? They're that valuable? Yuan was shocked to learn this. Of course. While it's relatively easy for a cultivator to train their physical bodies and their cultivation bases, training their soul is an entirely different matter, and without the proper technique, there's a high chance of damaging their soul. A risk no sane cultivator would dare to risk, since a damaged soul usually means instant death with no chance of reincarnation. Xiao Rou said. And she continued, training one's soul is a very delicate matter that requires extreme care and attention, as a single mistake could cost even an immortal their entire life. Immortals and reincarnation? Do they really exist? Yuan couldn't help but ask. While immortals are definitely very real, reincarnation, on the other hand, there has been no solid evidence it exists. However, many if not most cultivators believe in reincarnation, said Xiaohua. I see. Thank you, Xiaohua. I'll practice my divine sense the normal way since I don't have a soul technique and I don't feel like touching something that dangerous without more knowledge. Xiaohua will help Brother Yuan. Xiaohua said, and she continued, sit down and activate your divine sense. Yuan nodded and followed her instructions. Once he was seated in the lotus position, he closed his eyes and activated his divine sense. Visit Light/Novel Pub. Com for the best novel reading experience. Now try to expand your divine sense until you can no longer expand it. Xiaohua's voice resounded. A few moments later, Yuan expanded his divine sense until he reached his limit, feeling like someone trying to stretch their arms without moving. Good. Now keep your divine sense like that until you can no longer endure it, Brother Yuan. This will improve your endurance and strength at the same time, Xiaohua said to him like a lecturer. Chapter 252A Bored Face. Yuan followed Xiaohua's instruction and kept his divine sense active and as far out as he could manage until he could no longer keep it up due to exhaustion. It's really tiring trying to maintain divine sense. It's much more exhausting than using cultivation techniques. Yuan said afterward while panting. That's obvious, Brother Yuan, since using divine sense requires more than just your spiritual energy, as it uses your mental strength as well. With that being said, Brother Yuan is only a spirit warrior whilst people normally unlock their divine sense as a spirit master. Compared to the others, Brother Yuan is already miles ahead. Yuan nodded his head and rested until he recovered his mental and spiritual energy before he began training his divine sense again, and he repeated this process for nearly the entire day. Just as Yuan prepared to log off, Feng Yuxiang returned to the house. "I'm back, young master," Feng Yuxiang said, sounding like a family member after a long day at work. "Welcome back, Feng Feng. Thank you for taking my sister to that location," Yuan said to her. "Don't even mention it, young master. It's my pleasure to help you. After all, as long as this contract stands, my everything belongs to you," Feng Yuxiang said with a smile on her face. And she continued, "What about your other friend who's in the Western continent?" "All right. Her name is Meixiu and she's currently at Tang City in the Western continent. New novel chapters are published on lightnov/lpub. Tang City, right? Got it. What does she look like, young master? I'll make things much more convenient since I have never seen her before," Feng Yuxiang then asked. "How does she look?" Yuan was speechless as he hasn't seen Meixiu's appearance since he lost his eyesight over a decade ago. Feng Yuxiang raised her eyebrows and she spoke a moment later in a puzzled voice. "You don't know what your friend looks like, young master?" It's been a very long time since I last saw her after all." Yuan quickly thought of an excuse. "Oh, I see. Then what do you remember about her?" Feng Yuxiang then asked. Yuan closed his eyes to think, recalling Meixiu's features when she was young. She has this naturally bored-looking face, or more precisely, she always looks bored, almost like nothing in this world could entertain her. "I think you'll immediately notice her since she really stands out," Yuan said as he recalled Meixiu's face. "I see." Feng Yuxiang nodded with a somewhat dazed expression on her face, as she didn't expect such an awkward description. For more, visit lightnovel/pub/com. She will be at the city entrance waiting for you," Yuan suddenly said. "The entrance, right? I understand. I'll see you in a few days, young master. Stay safe," Feng Yuxiang said to him before turning around and leaving the house again. Whoosh. Two large and majestic flaming wings appeared behind Feng Yuxiang's back, and with a single flap of her wings, Feng Yuxiang soared many miles into the distance. "See you tomorrow, Xiaohua." "See you later, Brother Yuan." After logging off the game, Yuan immediately tried to use his divine sense, but alas, there were no results. "I shouldn't expect immediate results. This could take days, even months before anything happens. However, no matter how long it takes, as long as there's a chance that I can see again," Yuan motivated himself. Sometime later, Meixiu returned home and began preparing dinner. For more, visit lightnovel.pub.com. During dinner, Yuan said to her, "Meixiu, my friend Feng Feng is heading to the Western continent right now, and she'll probably be there in a few days. If you have time, log into the game and see if she arrived yet." "What does this friend of yours look like?" Meixiu asked. "She's a really pretty lady with long black hair and brown eyes. She also wears red clothes that seem a little too small for her since it sticks to her skin," Yuan said as he recalled Feng Yuxiang's image in his head. "Sticks to her skin?" Meixiu raised her eyebrows, thinking that this person must be wearing a tight dress or something to show off her body, but Yuan is too oblivious to realize it. "I understand. I will check the game whenever I'm available," Meixiu then said. After dinner, Meixiu went to do her own things whilst Yuan tried activating his divine sense again. An hour later, Yuan gave up and went to cultivate instead. The following morning, after Meixiu finished feeding Yuan breakfast, he went into the game while Meixiu went to school. "Let's train my divine sense today as well." Yuan sat down and quickly activated his divine sense with more determination than ever. Visit light/novelpub.com for a better experience. However, a few hours into his training, someone knocked on his door, forcing him to stop for the time being. Who could it be? Yuan wondered to himself as he went to open the door. Standing outside his doorsteps was a beautiful young lady with a familiar-looking face. "Hello, Minli. It's been a while," Yuan said to her. "Hello, disciple Yuan. I hope I'm not bothering you." Minli greeted him back. "No, you're fine. Do you need something?" Yuan then asked. Minli shook her head and said, "Nothing really. I heard about what happened recently and how you defeated the third strongest outer court disciple, taking his place in the power ranking. Congratulations." "Although it wasn't my intention to fight him, thank you," Yuan said with a somewhat stiff smile. "Disciple Yuan, You may be a spirit warrior and with extreme talents that this world has never seen before, but I won't give up on trying to catch up to you. Follow current novels on l/ig/novelpub. Min Li said, and she suddenly released her aura, surprising Yuan. You managed to break through to spirit warrior? Congratulations. Yuan congratulated her in a sincere voice. Thank you. Min Li felt embarrassed by his words for some reason and began blushing in response. Anyway, I'm going to return to my training now. I'll talk to you later, disciple Yuan. Okay. See you. Yuan nodded. Min Li then turned around and walked away. Chapter 253 Inner Court Disciple Examination. After Min Li left, Yuan went back inside his house and returned to training his divine sense. However, not even an hour later he could hear the door being knocked on again. Who is it this time? Yuan mumbled as he went to open the door. Are you disciple Yuan? A middle-aged woman wearing sect elder robes stood outside his door this time. Yes, I am. Yuan nodded. I am here to notify you that the Inner Court Disciple Examination will begin tomorrow morning, and you must be present at Jade Peak before sunrise or you'll automatically fail. Do you have any questions for me? Jade Peak before sunrise, right? I will be there. Thank you. Yuan said to the sect elder. The sect elder left the place shortly later. After leaving Yuan's place, the sect elder sighed to herself. This is my first time notifying a disciple in such a manner. What am I? Some kind of messenger? However, this is an order from a high-ranking elder, so I have no choice but to do it. Yuan returned to his room afterward and he mumbled, Inner Court Disciple, huh? I kind of want to experience life as an Outer Court Disciple some more, but I don't really know if there's anything else I can do as an Outer Court Disciple that an Inner Court Disciple cannot do. The source of this content is lightno/ve/lpub. Brother Yuan is an abnormal existence. Even though you have the title of an Outer Court Disciple, you don't really get treated like one, and you're already too powerful to experience the struggle that other Outer Court Disciples must endure. Xiaohua said to him. Is that so? But there's nothing I can do about that. What a pity. Yuan sighed. Once Brother Yuan travels to the upper heavens where there are more geniuses, you might be able to experience the struggle some people go through, or not. Since I highly doubt someone as talented as Brother Yuan would struggle in anything that's related to cultivation. Anyways, I'll participate in this examination and become an Inner Court Disciple tomorrow. For now, let's continue focusing on training my divine sense. Thus, Yuan returned to his training. Once the sun began setting, Yuan logged off the game and waited for Meixiu to return. Of course, he tried to activate his divine sense again but to no avail. After dinner, he said to her, Meixiu, I'm going to stay in the game tonight since there will be an event early tomorrow morning, and I don't want to wake you up earlier than you already do. It's fine. I don't mind. Your health is more important to me. When do you need to enter the game? Meixiu asked him. Are you sure? I can just stay in the game. It's not my first time doing this anyways. Of course Yu Rou approved of this as well. New novel chapters are published on l/i/novel/pub/com, if the young lady also allowed it then. Meixiu said, then she continued after a brief pause, what about breakfast? You'll miss breakfast at this rate? It's only one meal, it'll be fine. Furthermore, it'll be in the game so I won't really feel any hunger. I understand. Then good night, Yuan. Good night. After Yuan went inside the game, Meixiu went to do her own things before falling asleep. Inside the game, Yuan proceeded to spend the entire night training his divine sense. Brother Yuan, your divine sense's range has increased by almost a dozen meters since you began training. At this rate, it won't be long before you surpass me, Brother Yuan. Xiaohua said. You're exaggerating, Xiaohua. It'll take me years before I can catch up to you. Yuan sighed. Xiaohua looked at Yuan and blinked her eyes in a dazed manner. Follow current novels on lig/novelpub/com if Yuan had managed to reach the peak of Spirit Warrior in just a few weeks as a mortal who has never cultivated before, one can only imagine what he could achieve in a few years. Perhaps he might even ascend to the highest heaven and stand at the peak of this universe. Xiaohua suddenly turned to look at the window and said, Brother Yuan, it's almost sunrise. Alright. I almost forgot. Thank you for reminding me, Xiaohua. Once Xiaohua entered the necklace, Yuan made his way to the Jade Peak that was only a couple of minutes away if he ran. Meanwhile, at the Jade Peak, there were already over 100 Outer Court disciples gathered there, all of them preparing to take the inner court disciple examination. And just minutes before the sun fully rises, Yuan arrives at the Jade Peak, being the last person there. With that being said, since almost everybody there arrived hours earlier in advance, with some even having slept there through the night in fear of missing the examination, Yuan was destined to be the last to arrive. The other disciples there frowned when they saw Yuan arriving right before the deadline. In their eyes, it was because Yuan couldn't care enough about the examination, hence why he was acting so carefree. Why is someone like that participating in the examination? He's looking down on all of us with his carefree attitude. Right? Look at his casual-looking face. It's like he's taking a stroll in a park or something. New novel chapters are published on light/nov/lpub/com. Forget about him. People like that won't make it through half of the examination. In other words, he won't become an inner court disciple. I have engraved his face into my soul. Just wait until I become an inner court disciple. They'll be sure to teach him a lesson or two about his behavior. To these outer court disciples that have trained for years and endured countless trials to reach this point, becoming an inner court disciple is something profoundly significant and honorable, with the inner court disciple examination being the sacred path that will lead them to that position, and for someone to act so nonchalant in this sacred exam was a blasphemy, even a slap at their faces. Chapter 254, Increasing the Standards. After arriving at the Jade Peak, Yuan could already feel an unpleasant atmosphere in the air when he noticed the other disciples staring at him with frowns on their faces. They seem unhappy. Did something happen? Or are they just nervous about the examination? Yuan wondered to himself, completely oblivious that they were angry at him for being on time, as that was completely unreasonable. And while the other disciples only mumbled to each other, one of them was actually brave enough to approach Yuan and said loudly, "Hey! What's your name?" "Me. Yuan," he calmly responded. "Him? Yuan? Why does that name sound so familiar?" The disciples there wondered when they heard Yuan's name. Oh shit. He's that outer court disciple who defeated the Mad Tiger recently. One of them quickly realized and exclaimed in a surprised voice, shocking the other disciples. What? He's the new disciple who took Mad Tiger's third place in the power ranking. No wonder why he dares to act so carefree in the inner court disciple examination. The outer disciples there immediately found Yuan's late arrival to be more understanding now and felt less offended. He's a new disciple who only recently joined the sect, right? Why is he participating in the inner court disciple examination already? Even the top geniuses in our sect usually wait half a year before they decide to become an inner court disciple. Maybe he's just that confident. Who knows? The source of this content is lightnovelp/ub. C/om. Even though he's defeated the Mad Tiger, you cannot become an inner court disciple with just raw strength after all. While the disciples mumbled to each other, Yuan asked the disciple who spoke to him, "Do you need something from me?" "I just wanted to know the names of those who will be participating in the examination with me. I'm sorry if I bothered you. And good luck." The disciple acted very humbly after realizing that he was standing before the one who was said to have defeated the Mad Tiger without lifting a finger. "I see. Good luck to you too." Yuan nodded at the disciple, who quickly turned around and walked back into the crowd. A few seconds after Yuan gathered with the other disciples, the sect elder that went to Yuan's house to notify him of the examination appeared before them and said, "Hello, outer court disciples. I am Elder Tantai. Everybody here that is participating in the examination, follow me to the examination hall." Once Elder Tantai turned around and began walking, the disciples there followed her like a group of ducklings. Half an hour later, they arrived at the borders between the outer court and the inner court. That is the examination hall. It's where one comes out either as an inner court disciple or remains as an outer court disciple. Elder Tantai pointed at the massive stadium in the distance. A few minutes later, they arrived at the large entrance to this place. Updated from lightnovelpub.com. Once we walk through these doors, whether you become an inner court disciple or not today, you will not enter these doors again for another year. Elder Tantai said. If they become an inner court disciple, even if they are a cultivation genius, it will take them more than 1 year to even qualify to take the examination to become a core disciple. As for those who fail to become an inner court disciple today, they will have to wait another year before they can try the examination again. Elder Tantai opened the door and walked inside. Sometime later, They arrived inside the stadium that was shaped like a football field in the modern world. It was a vast and spacious 1-mile-long field inside with a couple of gates towards the end. Once they were at the center of this field, Elder Tantai said, "For the examination you will have to pass 3 tests." And she continued, "For the first test we will test your endurance by lighting an incense that has poisonous properties, and you must protect yourself with your spiritual energy until the incense is completely burned. Don't worry if you're infected by the poison, as we have antidotes prepared. For the second test, we will test your combat prowess with a training puppet. Use your strongest and most experienced martial skill on it. Lastly, we will have you fight against a real magical beast at the peak of Spirit Apprentice. Of course, you must defeat it in order to pass. Does anyone have any questions before we begin?" Elder Tantai then asked. "For more, visit Light Novel Pub. What kind of poison is it, Elder?" Someone raised his hands and asked. "Poison from a weeping serpent," said Elder Tantai without hesitation. "What? The weeping serpent?" The disciples were shocked when they heard this name, and some of them even began shaking in fear. Poison from a weeping serpent can kill anyone below Spirit Warrior within seconds, and most of the people there were only peak Spirit Apprentice, with a few that just entered Spirit Warrior. What if they die before they even begin the second exam, much less become an inner court disciple? Furthermore, while they expected this sort of test since it has happened before in previous examinations, the sect has never used such a strong poison for the examination before. This is a first. Seeing the fear on the disciples' faces, Elder Tantai said, "If you're too afraid of the poison, you may turn around and leave the examination hall. However, let me tell you, even if you come back next year, the poison won't get any weaker. In fact, it'll only grow stronger as time goes. The Dragon Essence Temple has decided to increase its standards for all disciples after all." The disciples' eyes widened with shock when they heard this. The sect increased its standards? Why would they suddenly do that when the sect has remained the same for thousands of years? What caused this change? The most up-to-date novels are published on Lightno/Velpub. You have 10 seconds to decide whether you want to continue or not. 9. Elder Tantai suddenly started the countdown, making the disciples panic even more. Chapter 255 Special Training Puppet? 3. 1. After 10 seconds, to Elder Tantai's surprise, none of the disciples decided to leave the examination. "Now then, let's continue with the examination, shall we?" Elder Tantai placed a foot-long purple-colored incense stick into the ground and said, "I want everybody to sit around the incense stick." The disciples followed her instruction, and a few moments later, all 121 disciples sat around the incense stick. "The exam will officially begin once I light the incense stick. If you're poisoned, I will immediately apply the antidote, but you will automatically fail the examination." The disciples swallowed nervously, and they watched as Elder Tantai lit the incense stick. Once the incense stick was lit, purple smoke began to fill the area quickly, but Elder Tantai remained standing directly beside the poisonous incense stick without a care in the world. Meanwhile, the disciples quickly began releasing their spiritual energy, covering their body with it so that the poisonous smoke won't be able to touch them. Of course, it required tremendous effort and a lot of stamina to maintain this state, and the disciples could feel their spiritual energy depleting at a rapid rate. As for Yuan, since he was a peak spirit warrior, he had plenty of spiritual energy to spare, and compared to the other disciples, he only needed to expend some of his spiritual energy to block the poison since his spiritual energy was much more powerful. Follow current novels on l/itnovelp/ub. Brother Yuan, you don't even need to use any spiritual energy to defend against poison at this level. Xiaohua's voice suddenly resounded in his head. Furthermore, with Brother Yuan's ability to resist poison, something that had obtained from consuming the demonic spider's monster core, the weeping serpent's poison won't have any effect on you. Really? Let me try it. Trusting Xiaohua's words, Yuan stopped cultivating and covering his body with spiritual energy, allowing the purple smoke to engulf his body. Xiaohua's right. I don't feel any different. Yuan was pleasantly surprised by this. However, when the sect elder saw this, she immediately retrieved a brown pill and tossed it at Yuan. "Eat it quickly or you'll die." Elder Tantai thought Yuan had already exhausted his cultivation and was exposed to the poison. Yuan subconsciously caught the brown pill, but he didn't eat it and instead said to her, "But I'm fine." What? Elder Tantai's eyes widened with surprise after hearing Yuan's word, and upon closer inspection, Yuan didn't appear to be struggling at all. Visit Lighten/Ovalpub. C/OM for a better experience. What is going on? She asked herself. Yuan was clearly exposed to the Weeping Serpent's poison, but for some reason he was completely fine. Does he have a unique physique that protects him from poison? Elder Tantai could only think of this logical explanation to Yuan's situation. However, if that was the case, why didn't he do it early to save some spiritual energy? Elder Tantai decided to not think too deeply about this as long as Yuan was fine. Keep the pill just in case you feel any symptoms. If you feel unpleasant or sick even the slightest at any moment, consume that pill immediately or you will really die, she then said to him. I understand. Yuan nodded his head and proceeded to sit there with a calm atmosphere around him. Despite listening to their puzzling conversation, the other disciples did not stop focusing on protecting themselves, fearing that if they lose focus for even a second that they might fail the exam. 15 minutes later, the incense stick only burned halfway to the end, and over half of the disciples there were already soaked in sweat, looking like they could barely hold on. New novel chapters are published on light/novelpub//. Elder Tantai took note of the disciples who she believes will fail soon and prepared the antidote in advance. A minute later, the first disciple to exhaust his cultivation base before the entire incense stick burned, and Elder Tantai tossed the pill at him. The disciple did not hesitate to consume the pill, as he could feel his skin burning the second the smoke touched his body. After another couple of minutes later, over a dozen disciples swallowed the same pill, failing the examination. The incense stick lasted for exactly 30 minutes, and at the end of the test, 51 disciples failed the examination. 70 of you remaining, huh? Much better than I'd expected, to be honest. Elder Tantai nodded her head in approval. You have 10 minutes to rest before we begin the next test. Elder Tantai said to them afterward. The disciples immediately sat down to cultivate and restore their spiritual energy. While the disciples rested, Elder Tantai prepared the next test by placing a training puppet in the middle of the field. Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. 10 minutes later, Elder Tantai clapped her hands and spoke loudly, You are done resting. If you continue, I will immediately fail you. Gather in front of me. The disciples quickly stopped their cultivation and stood up after hearing Elder Tantai's words. A few moments later, all of the disciples gathered in front of Elder Tantai. I will now explain the second test. Elder Tantai said as she pointed at the silver-colored training puppet that looked slightly different compared to the ones in the practice area. Some of you might have seen this before, but this is a special training puppet mostly used by inner court and core disciples because they are more durable than the ones in the outer court, and they have a special feature that allows them to gauge how powerful their attacks are. As her sentence ended, Elder Tantai turned around and punched the training puppet. Boom. The impact sounded very powerful, but the training puppet only moved back a couple of meters. A few seconds later, the training puppet began changing colors from silver to a dark yellow color. The most up-to-date novels are published on /li/novelp/ub/com. The colors will determine how much damage it sustained. There are 3 colors, green, yellow, and red. Green means non-lethal damage. Yellow is lethal. As for red, it means you can kill even a spirit warrior magical beast with that strike, and the darker the color the more damage they sustain. In order to pass this test, you must make the puppet turn yellow. Elder Tantai explained. Chapter 256 exploded into many pieces. Oh, one more thing. You are not allowed to use your own weapon in this test. Elder Tantai added, and she pointed to the weapon rack not far in the distance and continued, use one of those. Are there any questions? One of the disciples there raised his hand and said, we can use any technique we want, right? Elder Tantai nodded, that's right. Sometime later, after the questions, Elder Tantai said, if you wish to challenge the training puppet, step forward. A few seconds after Elder Tantai's words, a disciple at the Peak Spirit Apprentice stepped forward and spoke loudly, I will go first. He then went to pick up a spear from the weapon rack before coming back and approaching the training puppet. The disciple stood a few steps in front of the training puppet and took a moment to prepare himself. After taking a long and deep breath, the disciple raised his spear. Once the spear was raised perfectly parallel to the ground, the disciple held his breath for a second before thrusting it forward. Follow current novels on lightnov/pub. Combo. The training puppet was sent flying backward, but it slowed down very quickly and stopped 5 meters away from its original spot. The disciple waited for the evaluation nervously, and a few seconds later the training puppet turned from silver to green, then dark green before finally settling at yellow. "You passed," Elder Tantai said. "Yes." The disciple shouted in excitement before returning the spear in the weapons rack. A few minutes later, another disciple stood before the training puppet that had returned to its original spot with a different weapon in his hand, a sword. Ah! Ah! The disciple slashed the sword in his hand, creating a powerful strike that made the training puppet fall to its knees. Once it stood up again, the colors began changing. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. C/OM light green, dark green, light yellow. You passed. Elder Tantai said once the color stopped at light yellow. The next disciple went, but he didn't pick up a weapon and stood before the training puppet with his bare fists. Mountain-shattering fist strike. The disciple threw a punch with immense force at the training puppet, sending it flying many meters away. After falling down a dozen meters away, the training puppet got back up and slowly walked back to its original spot while changing colors as it walked. Dark green, light yellow, dark yellow, not bad. Elder Tantai nodded her head when she saw this and she continued, "You pass." "Thank you, Elder." The disciple bowed to her before standing with the other two who had passed before him. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. The disciples continued to challenge the training puppet one by one, and in less than an hour, over half of the disciples used their turn. Light yellow, pass. Light yellow, pass. Dark green, fail. Dark green, fail. Light yellow, pass. Out of the 30-something disciples that challenged the training puppet, only 2/3 of them had managed to pass the test by scoring a yellow color. However, nobody there has managed to make the training puppet turn red. A few more tries later, a disciple with a first-level spirit warrior cultivation base has finally managed to hit the training puppet hard enough for it to turn light red. Heavens! What a powerful martial skill. I could feel the impact even from here. I don't even dare to imagine what it must feel like to get struck by such a powerful blow. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub.com. The disciples were shocked by this young man who was wielding a great sword in his hands. I recognize that martial skill. It's the relentless force and earth-rank martial skill. No wonder why it was so powerful. To think he'd trained an earth-rank technique to such a high level. What astounding talents and display. Elder Tantai clapped afterward and she spoke in a praising voice, "Great. It's been a while since a disciple has managed to hit a red color during the examination. In fact, the last time someone managed to hit red was almost a year ago. Thank you, Elder, for your praises." Sometime later, once everyone else went, it was only Yuan who hadn't gone. That's disciple Yuan who defeated the Mad Tiger. "What color do you think he'll achieve?" The disciples immediately started mumbling to each other while Yuan went to the weapons rack to pick his weapon. Who knows really? During his match with the Mad Tiger, he didn't lift even a finger and used some mysterious technique to take down the Mad Tiger. I have a feeling he'll hit a dark yellow, maybe even light red. Visit lightnovelpub.com for a better experience. I think it'll only be light yellow. A few moments later, Yuan returned to the training puppet with a sword in his hand, and the other disciples stopped talking to watch with intensive gazes. What technique should I use? Yuan thought to himself. While the heaven-splitting sword strike is his most powerful technique available, he didn't want to destroy this place. As for his next strongest sword technique, demon sealing technique, it was out of the question since he has never used it before. Therefore he could only use the bloody sword strike, his most used technique. After taking an offensive stance, Yuan took a deep breath. Once he released his breath, the sword in his hand began glowing bright red, and Yuan swung the sword with all of his might. Boom! Yuan's aura exploded with a tyrannical feeling, and a red arc of light appeared in the air as the sword connected with the training puppet's neck. Clang. Updated from lighten//oval/p/ub. Come to Yuan's surprise, the blade to the sword in his hand exploded into many pieces after Yuan struck the training puppet. However, that was not the only thing to break during his strike, as the training puppet's head was cleanly sliced off from its body like it had been executed. What? Elder Tantai shouted in a shocked voice when she saw this, as this is her first time seeing someone destroy a training puppet in such a manner. As for the other disciples, their eyes were wide as saucers with their jaws dropped to the ground, looking like they'd just witnessed something impossible. Chapter 257 Powerful Magical Beast? What in the name of heavens just happened? Am I imagining things, or did he just decapitate the special training puppet that even spirit warriors cannot destroy? One of the disciples there mumbled in a dazed voice as he stared at the silver head that had rolled a few meters away after being detached from its body. Meanwhile, the training puppet that Yuan had decapitated continued to function, turning colors. Light green, light yellow, light red, dark red, black. To everybody's surprise, the special training puppet had suddenly turned black, a color they didn't know existed, much less seen before. Yuan looked at the broken sword in his grasp with a dazed expression on his face. He didn't expect the sword to break so easily. It felt like Head smashed a rock with an egg. However, to his surprise, Head still managed to decapitate the training puppet. Of course, it was the spiritual energy released from the sword that had sliced the training puppet's head cleanly off its body, as the sword was destroyed the moment it touched the puppet's tough body due to the immense force behind it. Sometime later, once she snapped out of her daze, Elder Tantai approached the training puppet to examine its damage with a perplexed look on her face, seemingly trying to figure out what the heck just happened. She then looked at Yuan's broken sword. "I don't recognize the technique you just used. What rank is it?" she then asked him. "Follow current novels on lighten/ov/lpub. Com Earth rank," he calmly responded. Elder Tantai questioned her own existence after learning that Yuan had managed to decapitate a special training puppet with an Earth rank technique while she can't even damage it with a technique of the same rank and a cultivation base of 7th level spirit warrior. "Anyway, you passed," Elder Tantai said after a moment of silence. Even if she can't comprehend what just happened, she couldn't deny what was right before her eyes. Fortunately for her, Yuan was the last person to take the test, or she would have needed to find another special training puppet, which would have delayed the examination for at least 2 to 3 hours, since nobody could have expected an outer court disciple destroying a special training puppet that even core disciples cannot destroy. As expected of the one who defeated the Mad Tiger without lifting a finger. If Head lifted his finger, perhaps that match would have ended up as a death match. The disciples there wholeheartedly believed that Wu Laohu had lucked out when Yuan decided to let him survive. Sometime later, Elder Tantai gathered the disciples again and said, "There are 24 of you left, and we will be heading to the final test where you must defeat a magical beast before you become an inner court disciple. If you have any questions, ask away. Visit lightnov/lpub. .com for the best novel reading experience." One of the disciples immediately raised his hand and asked, "What kind of magical beast will we be fighting?" Elder Tantai then responded in a calm voice, "It's a powerful magical beast that is mostly found within the Jade Forest. The Jade Frog." The Jade Frog. The disciples expressed shock upon hearing this name. Jade frogs are incredibly hard to deal with since they have a large body and tough skin, and they like to jump around. A single mistake could lead to their bodies getting flattened. Meanwhile, Yuan tilted his head after hearing this familiar name. "Jade Frog? Isn't this the first monster that I have fought in this game? The one that nearly gave me a heart attack because I thought it turned Xiaohua's body into meat paste?" Yuan remembered his encounter with the Jade Frog as though it was just yesterday, as that was his first combat experience in this world. "Who would like to go first?" Elder Tantai asked the disciples after answering all of their questions. "I'd like to go first." An eager voice immediately responded. The disciples turned to look at the voice, and to their surprise, Yuan had volunteered to go first. Updated from Light Novel Pub. "Sure, go ahead," Elder Tantai said, and she continued, "One of the gates at the end will open once the test begins, and you will have 15 minutes to defeat the Jade Frog or it's an automatic loss. And just like the previous test, you can only use the equipment provided to you." Yuan nodded his head before heading to the weapons rack to pick up another weapon. This time he chose a dagger, surprising the Elder Tantai and the other disciples with his choice. "Why is he using the dagger? I thought for sure he was going to use the sword again. Is he trying to show off or something? This test is entirely different compared to the previous 2 tests. You need a lot of experience and knowledge to fight a magical beast, especially the Jade Frog that's well known for killing inexperienced cultivators who are not used to their attack patterns. Who knows? He's done nothing but surprise since the beginning. Maybe he'll do the same for this time as well." Sometime later, once Yuan was standing in the middle of the field with the other disciples standing all the way in the back, Elder Tantai shouted, "Release the magical beast." The metal gates immediately opened, and the ground began shaking as a Jade Frog made its appearance by hopping out of the entrance. The disciples swallowed nervously when they saw the Jade Frog and its intimidating appearance. Visit lightnove.com for a better experience. Meanwhile, Yuan stared at the round magical beast with a nostalgic feeling. Boom. The jade frog stopped moving after it landed a few meters away from Yuan, and it proceeded to stare at Yuan and the others there as though it was analyzing them and their situation. In this stillness and silence, a movement was suddenly made, but it was not by the jade frog. Instead, it was Yuan who moved first, as Head suddenly tossed his dagger into the air. A vicious light flickered in his eyes, and right as the dagger in the air reached its highest point and prepared to fall down, it suddenly stopped moving and hovered in the air for a split second before shooting itself at the jade frog like a shooting star. Chapter 258 Becoming an Inner Court Disciple. The moment it saw the dagger trembling in the air, the jade frog sensed imminent danger, causing its body to instinctively jump up to avoid it. Whoosh! The flying dagger barely missed the jade frog. However, before the jade frog could even land, the flying dagger suddenly did a sharp turn and flew at it again like there was a string attached to the jade frog. Whoosh! A gaping hole appeared before the jade frog's forehead a split second later, instantly killing it. But the ground shook when the large and heavy jade frog's lifeless body fell down from the sky, shocking the spectators. Once the place was still, Yuan turned around and walked back to be with the rest of the disciples without even turning around or checking whether the jade frog was truly dead or not. I have defeated the jade frog. Am I an inner court disciple now? Yuan asked Elder Tantai, who stood there with a gawking look on her face. After a long moment of silence, Elder Tantai nodded her head in a stiff movement before speaking. Why? Congratulations on becoming an inner court disciple, Disciple Yuan. Raise your badge. Take this to the distribution center to get your inner court disciple badge and robes. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Yuan accepted the badge with humbleness before walking out of the examination hall in a casual manner, almost like he was taking a stroll in a park. The other disciples there watched as Yuan's back disappeared from their sights. Just where on earth did this disciple Yuan come from, and how come I have never heard of him until recently? There's no way such a genius would be a nobody. Elder Tantai mumbled to herself in a dazed voice. Sometime later, once the jade frog's corpse was taken away, Elder Tantai resumed the examination. Meanwhile, Yuan went to the distribution hall and handed the elder at the front desk the badge Head just obtained from Elder Tantai. So you just passed the inner court disciple examination, huh? Congratulations. The sect elder there treated him with respect, taking Yuan by surprise. After all, he's been treated like an insect most of the time by the sect elders in this sect. At least that's what it feels like, and it was a refreshing feeling to be respected by a sect elder. Can I have your old identification badge? The sect elder then asked him. Yuan nodded and handed him the bronze identification badge. Updated from lightnov/lpub.com. I'll be right back. The sect elder went to the back of the room for a few minutes before returning. Here you go. I have updated your identification badge. As for your living quarters, you can choose to stay in your current place or be assigned a new living quarter in the inner court. Yuan immediately responded without any hesitation, I will remain in my current residence. The sect elder was slightly surprised by Yuan's decision. After all, the living quarters within the inner court are more spacious and luxurious overall, and you only have one roommate compared to the 5 roommates in the outer court. Any logical being would choose to live in the inner court. Perhaps he doesn't want to leave his friends? The sect elder could only think of one reason for Yuan's decision. If that's your decision, then I won't say anything. However, if you wish to move to the inner court for whatever reason, you can come back here and we'll arrange something for you, said the sect elder a moment later. And he continued, now about your new uniforms. Which color do you want? Blue or green? Does it matter which one I choose? Yuan asked. No, it doesn't matter. It's just a preference thing. Follow current novels on /lightnovelpub/com, then I'll choose blue. Very well. They'll be right back again. The sect elder went to the back for a second time before returning a few minutes later with 3 sets of blue uniforms. Here you go. If the sizes don't fit, you may return to exchange them. Thank you, senior. Yuan accepted the uniforms. One more thing before you leave. There'll be a lecture tomorrow that'll introduce you to life as an inner court disciple. If you can please attend it. It'll be at the Education Peak in building number 111. I understand. I'll try to attend it. Yuan nodded. Sometime later, Yuan left the distribution hall and returned to his own living quarters. HM? New novel chapters are published on Light Novel Pub. Kam Min Lee, who was just about to leave her house, noticed Yuan's approaching figure and the blue robes he was carrying. Disciple Yuan. Those uniforms? You're an inner court disciple now? Min Lee exclaimed in a shocked voice. Yuan nodded and said, yes, I just took the examination today and became an inner court disciple. Min Lee's jaw dropped to the ground. Why didn't you tell me? I would have done the examination with you. Min Lee asked him. That never crossed my mind. I didn't know you wanted to take the examination as well, Yuan said in an apologetic voice. I am not blaming you or anything. Min Lee quickly said. Anyways, now that you're an inner court disciple, will you be moving out? Min Lee then asked him. No, I will be staying here, Yuan responded. Visit lighten/o/vel/pub/com for a better experience. Really? A pleasantly surprised expression on Min Lee's face. What? She couldn't help but ask him, hoping that he would say something romantic like because of you or something along that line. But alas, Yuan said, there's really no reason for me to move out of such a nice house. But you will have to walk to the inner court every time you need something from there, which will take up a lot of time. It's okay. I like to be active anyways. Is that so? Min Lee mumbled. Normally, cultivators want to spend as much time as they could on cultivation while saving time for everything else so they can have more time for cultivation. However, for geniuses like Yuan, minor things like that don't really matter, as it won't affect their extreme cultivation speed much if any at all. Sometime later, Min Lee left the place to go to the practice area. The next inner court disciple examination is in 3 months, Min Lee sighed inwardly as she left the place. Updated from /l/itnov/lpub/. Meanwhile, Yuan went back to his own room. Congratulations on becoming an inner court disciple, brother Yuan. Xiaohua said to him. Thank you, Xiaohua, Yuan said to her. A few moments later, Yuan sat down and began training his divine sense. Once the sky began turning dark, Yuan logged off the game and waited for Meixiu to return home. I'm back, Yuan, Meixiu said to him after closing the door. Welcome back, Meixiu. I'll prepare dinner right now. After putting down her stuff from school and changing her clothes, Meixiu went to cook dinner. Visit /lig/novelpub.com for a better experience. Once that was done, Meixiu went to feed Yuan. Yuan, you need to be careful when you're playing the game, Meixiu suddenly warned him. Huh? Why would you say that? Yuan asked. The young lady told me to warn you because there will be a lot of players trying to get into the Dragon Essence Temple to meet you. Really? I should start wearing my mask even in the sect then? Yuan mumbled. The young lady also told me to warn you to stay away from people who try to ask you personal questions even if they might be an NPC because players can disguise themselves as NPCs and you won't know it. I understand. You'll be careful, Yuan said. By the way, how is Yu Rou doing at school? I hope she's doing fine after what happened recently. The young lady is doing much better. Furthermore, she can always meet you in cultivation online. At least that's what she keeps telling herself. Updated from li/t/n/ovalpub/com. I plan on leaving the Dragon Essence Temple to spend more time with Yu Rou in a week or so anyway. I cannot leave until I participate in the Mystic Realm, since I promised the sect master and others that I'd help them. The Mystic Realm? Meixiu raised her eyebrows. Sometime later, after she finished feeding Yuan dinner, Meixiu said, I'll let you rest for a bit before I wash your body, Yuan. Okay. Meixiu went to clean the dishes afterward. Half an hour later, Meixiu returned to the room with his wheelchair. After picking Yuan up from the bed and placing him in the chair, Meixiu pushed him to the bathroom, where she helped him undress. And since she didn't want to get her clothes wet while washing Yuan, Meixiu decided to also take her clothes off and went into the bathroom with him naked. Once they were inside the bathroom, Meixiu squeezed some body wash onto her palms before she rubbed it all over Yuan's body. Updated from lightnovelp/u/b/. Once Yuan's body was covered in body wash, Meixiu used a soft scrubber and began scrubbing his body. This is my first time washing him, Meixiu thought to herself as she cleaned whatever she could. A few moments later, Meixiu reached his lower area, and her eyes subconsciously moved to look at the cute thing between Yuan's legs. Almost like she was mesmerized or something, Meixiu couldn't find the strength to look away, and she proceeded to stare at it with a dazed look on her face. Meixiu finally snapped out of her daze a few moments later, and she proceeded to wash Yuan's legs, ignoring the thing in the middle for now. What is this feeling? Meixiu swallowed nervously when she noticed her heart beating faster than usual, feeling as though the temperature in the room had suddenly increased. Chapter 259 An Unexpected Phenomenon. I know I said this before, but I really appreciate you doing this for me, Meixiu. Yuan suddenly said to her while she scrubbed his legs. Don't worry about it. You have also helped me out a lot when I didn't know any better as a child. Meixiu responded in a low voice. When she was a young child who was still in training to be the perfect servant, she would often make mistakes and get scolded by her mother. When that happens, Meixiu would cry like any other brat and seek Yuan for comfort. I was originally trained to serve you, Yuan, but after what happened to you, they decided to assign me to the young lady instead. Meixiu suddenly said. At one point I was even... Meixiu suddenly stopped midway through her sentence. Meixiu. Never mind that. I was just talking to myself, Meixiu mumbled a moment later. After cleaning Yuan's legs, there was only one place that still needed to be cleaned, the area between his legs. Meixiu swallowed nervously at the thought of touching this cute snake, almost like she feared that it might bite her if she approached it. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. However, as much as she wanted to leave that place alone, she was trained to do her job properly. It was inexcusable for her to half-ass a job or leave her job unfinished. Therefore, she could only swallow her nervousness and reach for the soft thing between Yuan's legs and began cleaning it with her hands, as it was very difficult to clean every nook and cranny with the sponge. A chill went up Yuan's spine when Meixiu began cleaning his precious thing. Perhaps it was due to his spirit warrior cultivation base, but the sensation of his own body has significantly improved since then, allowing him to feel a lot more. Had already noticed this when Meixiu began washing his body, but it wasn't as apparent as currently for some reason, almost like the area between his legs was much more sensitive than other areas on his body. And then an unexpected phenomenon happened. This is... Meixiu's eyes widened with shock when the small snake suddenly started growing larger and larger. Since this is her first time washing Yuan, it is only obvious that she has no prior knowledge, so she didn't know if Yuan's sprout was normal in such situations. Of course, Yuan was oblivious to this natural reaction on his body. Meixiu didn't know whether she should continue or stop at this point, but she eventually convinced herself to continue. Thus, Meixiu began washing Yuan again, but with a slight difference. She was rushing it, something she had never done before. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnov/elp/ub. A few seconds later, Meixiu finally stopped washing him and began rinsing the soap off his body with the shower head. I am finished. Meixiu spoke in a tiny voice afterward, her face flushed with redness. Thank you, Meixiu. Yuan said to her in a calm voice, completely oblivious to the blushing expression on Meixiu's face at this moment. Sometime later, Meixiu laid a large dry towel on Yuan's bed before placing Yuan on this blanket and drying his body off with another towel. It's back to normal again. Meixiu thought to herself as she dried his body. After drying Yuan's body, Meixiu helped Yuan put his clothes on. I am done here, Yuan. I am going to clean myself now. Meixiu said, still completely naked at this point. Okay. You can go to sleep afterward. Good night, Yuan. Updated from /lightno/vel/pub/com. Good night. Meixiu went to the bathroom to wash herself shortly after, and Yuan began cultivating. What was that warm sensation just now? Yuan wondered to himself before he started his cultivation. Meanwhile, Meixiu spent longer than usual in the bathroom. Once she was finally out again, she went straight to her room and sat on her bed with a dazed look on her face for many minutes before she decided to put on the console and enter cultivation online to see whether Yuan's friend was there. After spending half an hour of waiting with no results, Meixiu logged off the game to sleep. That night, Meixiu had a weird dream where she was surrounded by mushrooms and snakes. The following morning, after feeding Yuan breakfast, Meixiu went to school. You look tired, Meixiu. Did you not get enough sleep last night? This is my first time seeing you like this. Yu Rou said to Meixiu inside the car when she noticed Meixiu's dazed look. I am fine, young lady. Meixiu responded with a slight delay. The most up-to-date novels are published on li/novelpus/b. I see. If you need to rest, just let me know and I'll give the teachers an excuse so you can rest for the day. Thank you, young lady, but I am fine. How's brother Tian? Yu Rou then asked. The young master is doing great, and as usual, he's eating 3 bowls of soup with ease, she responded. I see. By the way, this reminds me you were supposed to be brother Tian's servant at one point, right? I remember your mother saying something like that to me before. Yu Rou suddenly asked. That's right. I was trained to support the young master and satisfy his every need. Meixiu nodded. Yu Rou's eyes widened and she mumbled in a slightly surprised voice, that sounds like they trained you to become his wife or something. Meixiu remained silent regarding Yu Rou's statement, yet a weird glint flickered in her eyes. New novel chapters are published on li/jht//novelpub. C/om, do you regret it? Yu Rou continued to ask. Not being able to work for Brother Tian despite training for it, I mean. While it did feel bitter at first since it felt like all of the training I did was for nothing, I was able to assist the young lady because of the skills I had learned with that training, so I don't have any regrets, Meixiu answered after a moment of silence. But you're taking care of Brother Tian now just like you were trained. It feels like fate, Yu Rou chuckled at her own statement. Sometime later they arrived at school and began their classes. Chapter 260 You Tricked Me. While Meixiu went to school with Yu Rou, Yuan continued to train his divine sense in. Meanwhile, at the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower, Long Yijuan and the other sect masters stared in shock as the 99th floor emitted a golden light. He really did it. He's managed to reach the 100th floor. The disciples there mumbled to each other with surprise. Who's currently inside? I just arrived. Shuizi, the #1 genius of the Grand Saber Palace. Shuizi, huh? I heard he managed to reach Spirit Warrior at the young age of 18 and peak of Spirit Warrior at 27 years old. He's definitely up there even for a genius. Meanwhile, the sect masters laughed out loud. Ha! Looks like this will be the last person to challenge this tower even though we still have 2 more people. I was getting worried for a second, but it's relieving to see someone finally reach the final floor. Despite most of their disciples challenging the tower, most of them had stopped around the 90th floor, and only Shuizi managed to reach the 100th floor. Visit lightnovelpub/c//om for the best novel reading experience. However, Long Yijuan did not show any signs of worry, and he merely stared at the tower with a calm look on his face. What do you think about this, Elder Xian? Do you think he'll beat the 100th floor? Elder Bai suddenly asked him. I want to say it's impossible, but we have been taught again and again that there's no such thing as impossible by him. Though, it is still unlikely that he would be able to pass that floor. Elder Xian said with a bittersweet smile on his face. Meanwhile, inside the tower, a handsome young man with a fierce expression on his face slowly climbed the stairs to the 100th floor after spending 15 minutes recovering his strength. Already the last floor? I will give this place some credit since it was not easy climbing to this level, but alas, it looks like I am fated to defeat this tower. Shuizi said with a confident smile on his face. A few moments later, Shuizi stepped onto the 100th floor and was greeted by the new scenery. What a vast place. Am I still inside the tower? Or is this merely an illusion? Shuizi mumbled in a dazed voice. Anyways, where are the monsters? Hurry up and come out so I can beat this boring tower already. Shuizi shouted out loud in an arrogant voice. Oh, a boring tower, huh? The most up-to-date novels are published on /li/gaitno/v/lpub. Calm the space before Shuizi suddenly twisted, and a gaping hole appeared in the space a moment later. Then Shuizi watched with wide eyes as a massive golden dragon appeared from within the black hole. Once it appeared, the Great One gazed upon Shuizi as though he was an ant and spoke in a calm voice. While I will give you credit for making it here, nor did I expect someone else to come here so soon after the last one, but you don't have what it takes to clear the 100th floor. Shuizi did not respond to the Great One, mostly because he was frozen stiff from shock and fear. What a boring one. The Great One shook its head when it saw the state Shuizi was in. Anyways, since you want to get this over with, allow me to tell you the challenge for this floor. Boom. An intense aura suddenly exploded from the Great One's large body, causing the entire world to shake. This content is taken from li/g/novel/pub. Calm, if you want to defeat the 100th floor, you must defeat me. The Great One's voice echoed in Shuizi's ears. I am possible. You're asking for the impossible. This isn't fair. How the fuck am I supposed to defeat a dragon? Shuizi was snapped out of his daze by the Great One's aura that activated his instincts and desire to run. Ah. The Great One suddenly laughed before speaking. Impossible? If it was impossible, How did the person who came before you pass the floor and defeat the tower? Are you telling me that this person defeated you? Shuizi exclaimed. No, we didn't fight and I had another challenge for him. What? That's even more unfair. Why are you giving me a different challenge then? A mysterious smile appeared on the Great One's face and it spoke in a calm voice. If you'd like, I can let you take that challenge instead. Really? The source of this content is lee//gaitno/velpub/ coma. Hopeful look appeared on Shuizi's face after hearing this and he immediately nodded his head. Yes. I want to take that challenge. Very well, the Great One said. A few moments later the ground suddenly began rumbling, startling Shuizi. What the heck is this shaking? He wondered to himself. The Great One spoke as a black line appeared on the horizon. For this challenge you must defeat 100,000 peak spirit warrior magical beasts. You will have unlimited time to do so and 24 hours of rest time, and you may pause this challenge whenever you wish. However, once your 24 hours run out, you will have to fight until your last breath. Shuizi's eyes widened with shock after hearing this. You want me to fight against 100,000 spirit warrior magical beasts? This is even more impossible than fighting you. You tricked me. There's no way anyone could possibly pass this trial even if they're given a week to rest. Shuizi pointed at the Great One with trembling hands. Visit lightnovelp/ub//com for a better experience. Why would I trick you? The last person cleared this challenge with no problem at all. The Great One shook its head. Then tell me who defeated this challenge. I'll believe you then. However, the Great One shook its head and said, that person's name is too great for someone like you. If you do not accept the challenge, then you will automatically forfeit. Shuizi gritted his teeth in anger, and he turned to look at the sea of magical beasts that were swarming towards him at this moment, his back soaked in cold sweats. Chapter 261 Impossible to Beat. Shuizi watched as the sea of magical beasts quickly closed their distance, and once they were only half a mile away, Shuizi could no longer keep calm and shouted, I give up. I give up. Get me out of here. The Great One coldly snorted after seeing Shuizi surrender the challenge. Not even going to attempt the challenge? You're a much bigger coward than I'd anticipated. Get lost. You do not qualify to even be in my presence. The Great One's eyes flickered with a golden light, and before Shuizi realized it, he was back on the first floor of the tower. Meanwhile, outside the tower, Long Yijuan and the other sect masters just witnessed the lights on all 99 floors turn off, signaling Shuizi's failure. What? The sect masters there were speechless by this, as they truly expedited Shuizi to defeat the tower. A few moments later, Shuizi left the tower with a dazed look on his face, looking empty, almost like he was dead inside. Shuizi, what happened in there? You were so close. His sect master quickly approached him. I can't do it. No human being can pass the 100th floor. It's impossible. Shuizi responded in a voice of disbelief. The sect masters there immediately frowned and one of them asked, What do you mean by that? What was on the 100th floor? New novel chapters are published on /lee/gitnovelpub.com. It was a dragon, a real dragon. I had to defeat a dragon. Shuizi spoke, and his body trembled upon recalling the Great One's intimidating aura. What? A dragon? Don't tell me you had to fight this dragon. The sect masters there were shocked. Even Long Yijuan and the high-ranking sect elders were surprised by this since they didn't hear anything about a dragon from Yuan. Shuizi nodded and said, It was a golden dragon, and it had the cultivation of a spirit master. After taking a deep breath, he continued, However, that's not even the worst part, since there was another challenge on the 100th floor, which involves defeating 100,000 spirit warrior magical beasts with only 24 hours to rest. 100,000 spirit warrior magical beasts. How is that even possible? The sect masters there repeated in a shocked voice, their expressions filled with disbelief. Even if they challenged this tower themselves, they would not dare to claim that they can defeat 100,000 magical beasts. Shuizi nodded again and said, Furthermore, the dragon claimed that someone had managed to clear that challenge by defeating all 100,000 magical beasts. That's the challenge Disciple Yuan told us about. Elder Xian thought to himself after hearing Shuizi's words. At that moment, the sect masters there turned to look at Long Yijuan who was casually sitting there with a smug look on his face. Visit light/novelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. What are you looking at? You still have 2 more disciples. Hurry up, the mystic realm is coming up and I need to finish preparing for that. Long Yijuan said to them. However, the sect masters did not send another disciple inside the tower, and they remained standing there while staring at Long Yijuan with deep frowns on their faces. If what Xuezi said was true, that they had to either defeat a spirit master dragon or fight 100,000 spirit warrior magical beasts, there was simply no way the remaining 2 disciples would be able to defeat this tower. In other words, they are destined to lose their bet. Sect Master Long, you tricked us. You knew it was impossible to beat this tower, so you made the bet with the dragon-slaying saber as bait. One of the sect masters suddenly pointed at Long Yijuan and blamed him for tricking them. However, Long Yijuan remained calm and said, "No shit, you idiot. Why else would I dare to gamble the dragon-slaying saber? With that being said, you are wrong about one thing, that the tower is impossible to defeat. If it's really impossible, how did my disciple defeat it?" Bullshit. I bet your disciple had an entirely different challenge and the tower is merely screwing with us because we're not disciples of this sect. Or you manipulated the tower to give us an impossible challenge. The sect masters said. Long Yijuan shook his head and said, "As if I have the power to manipulate the tower. In the history of the sect, nobody, and I mean not a single person before that disciple had managed to clear all 100 floors, and even the founder was defeated on the 100th floor." New novel chapters are published on lightnov/lpub. The sect masters' faces dropped after hearing such words. Not even their ancestor who was known as the #1 genius during his era could beat the 100th floor? Then what kind of monster does it take to defeat the tower? Just who is this disciple the Dragon Essence Temple is trying so hard to hide? I know what you're thinking, but I won't say anything. If you wish to meet this disciple, you'll see him at the Mystic Realm. Long Yijuan laughed out loud. The sect masters there snickered coldly. Anyways, are you going to continue or not? If not, you can forfeit the bet and your treasures as well. Long Yijuan held his hand out in a lazy manner. The sect masters gritted their teeth in frustration. Even though they knew it was impossible for the remaining disciples to defeat the tower, they couldn't just hand their treasures to Long Yijuan without even trying, as that would simply make things even more embarrassing for them. I will challenge the tower. One of the remaining 2 disciples suddenly stepped forward and said, "Chances are I will not be able to defeat the dragon or 100,000 magical beasts, but I will definitely try." Updated from Light Novel //pub. The disciple sect master nodded and said, "Well said. We have not lost just yet." Thus, the next disciple went inside the tower and began climbing it. Go ahead, keep struggling. The results will remain the same anyways. Long Yijuan laughed inwardly at their futile efforts. Chapter 262 Abnormal Amount of Visitors. Sometime after the next challenger went inside the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower, Long Yijuan mumbled to Elder Xian who was sitting right beside him. He should be an inner court disciple by now. Go find him and let him enter the Dragon's Peak alongside Fei Yuyan. Elder Xian nodded, I understand. When the other sect masters noticed Elder Xian leaving the scene, they asked, where's he going? Elder Xian does not want to waste any more of his time here since he already knows the outcome. Therefore he's leaving to work. Long Yijuan responded in a nonchalant voice. Why you little? The sect masters gritted their teeth at Long Yijuan's obvious provocation. However, they didn't dare to claim that they will definitely win this bet, especially not after what they learned about the 100th floor. Even for a spirit master like them, it would be impossible to defeat 100,000 magical beasts even if they were given a month, much less 24 hours of rest time, and they cannot fathom the talent and strength that is required to pass this tower. If what the dragon on the 100th floor told Xuezi was true, that someone had managed to defeat 100,000 magical beasts and clear the tower, then the cultivation world is about to experience a turmoil it hasn't felt in countless years. Hey, what are you guys thinking? One of the sect master there suddenly whispered to the other three. Isn't it obvious? In thinking about how we can get ourselves out of this shithole, it's obvious that we won't win this bet. However, we'll be handing 4 divine-grade treasures to the Dragon Essence Temple if we lose. New novel chapters are published on /lightno/velpub/c/om. Is there anything we can really do at this point? We've sworn a blood oath. Unless you want to invoke a heavenly tribulation and curse your future generations, we cannot break the blood oath. Fuck. We were blinded by the dragon-slaying saber. That bastard really got us good this time. Even though we cannot do anything about the blood oath, we can still try to work something out with him after we give him our treasures. I highly doubt the Dragon Essence Temple wants to offend 4 sects at once. Right? We can simply buy our divine-grade treasures back, or we can offer something else in return for them. Let's try to figure this out before our last disciple challenges the tower. Long Yijuan noticed the other sect masters whispering to each other, and he could already imagine what they were talking about. However, it didn't matter to him, as the Dragon Essence Temple would benefit from this bet no matter what they did at this point, and he continued to watch the tower light up with golden lights. Meanwhile, Elder Xian went to Yuan's living quarters and knocked on the doors. A few moments later, Yuan opened the door and greeted him. "Hello, Senior Xian. Let's talk inside," Elder Xian said. This content is taken from lig/novelpub/. /c/om. Yuan nodded and closed the door after he entered. Once they were seated, Elder Xian began to speak. "First and foremost, allow me to congratulate you on becoming an inner court disciple." "Thank you, the examination was pretty fun," Yuan said with a smile. "Fun?" A bittersweet smile appeared on Elder Xian's face. In this entire sect, Yuan is probably the only disciple who would have fun during such an important examination. "Anyway, I'm here to talk about the Dragon's Peak. The sect master wants you and Fei Yuyan to enter before the mystic realm that is only a week away. Are you available now? I can take you there right now." Yuan nodded and said, "Yes, I am free. I was just training my divine sense." "Training divine sense at your cultivation level, huh?" "I didn't start training my divine sense until I was a spirit master. Unfortunately, the Dragon Essence Temple doesn't have any soul techniques to assist you in that matter," Elder Xian said. "It's fine. Visit Light Novel Pub. Com for a better experience. Okay, then follow me. Let's go pick up Disciple Fei before we head to Dragon's Peak." Just as Elder Xian turned to walk towards the door, Yuan suddenly said, "Please wait a moment, Senior Xian." Elder Xian turned around and watched as Yuan retrieved a black jade mask before putting it on his face. Elder Xian raised his eyebrows after seeing this. "Is it fine if I go outside with my mask? There are a lot of people looking for me and I don't want them to recognize me," Yuan said. Elder Xian became even more puzzled after hearing his words and he asked, "Are there disciples bothering you right now? I will immediately deal with them if that's the case." "No, it has nothing to do with the disciples, nor am I being bothered right now. However, there are people out there looking for me, and I have been told that they will be trying to enter the sect just to look for me because of my appearance at the Zither competition." Now that you mention it, there has been an irregular amount of people trying to enter the sect as of lately, and most of them are rogue cultivators. "Are they perhaps the people you're referring to?" Elder Xian asked him. Ever since the Zither competition, a lot of people have been visiting the Dragon Essence Temple, with some people even trying to sneak inside. However, none of the elders or Long Yijuan found that weird, as it was normal for people to flock to the Dragon Essence Temple after what happened at the Zither competition, and this is usually what happens after a competition or tournament. Visit lig/nov/elp/ub. Com for a better experience, though the number of people visiting the sect as of recent is through the roof and unlike anything the sect has experienced before, and most of them were rogue cultivators without any backgrounds. If these people are here because of you, then we need to tighten up the security around the sect." Elder Xian mumbled with a perplexed look on his face. Sometime later he said, "He'll speak with the sect master afterward. For now, let's get you and Disciple Fei to the Dragon's Peak so you can strengthen yourselves as much as possible before the Mystic Realm." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.